After a thrilling FNCS Major 1 with two of the closest finishes we've ever seen, it's time to look ahead to this season. Here are some top teams that you need to keep an eye on going into Major 2. Firstly, the winners of Major 1, it's Vico, Veno, and Flixie. Since coming together, the experience of Veno combined with the fragging power of Vico and Flixie has been incredible to watch, and their dominating performance throughout all of last season was a spectacle that we could all enjoy. Then being able to continue that form into the Major 1 finals and book their spot in Globals shows just how good this team is, even under the pressure of a major finals. While they've mostly been landing at Lone Wolf Lair and Crime City this season, it now looks as though they're going to be angling towards the Big Bend and Splitting Pin split drop at the bottom of the map. With that being said, this team are able to find success no matter where they land, and everything seems to be clicking into place, at the point in the season where it really matters. Last season, Queasy, Swizzy, and Mustache were one of the most exciting teams to watch, with their simple strategy coined by Queasy at Globals: take height, don't get eliminated. And it worked. A standout performer across the whole of that Major 1 finals was Mustache, putting up incredible numbers and being the perfect complement to Swizzy's equally impressive fragging power. They also etched their names firmly into the buildings of Seaport City with a dominating performance off spawn, meaning there's no way they'd be leaving for this season. And while the back end of the season's divisional cups haven't quite been as successful for them, the experience and talent that all three of these players have means they're still big contenders heading into Major 2. Finally, for EU, let's take a look at a brand new trio formed midway through this season. It's Thomas HD, Panzer, and Uppel. This team brings together three very different storylines from Major 1, including the EU legend himself, Thomas HD, having a very difficult season, not making the Major 1 finals at the end of it all. Hansa was the star performer in his trio with FNCS veterans Mongrel and Mr. Savage, helping that team place 8th overall and skyrocketing his recognition within the community. Then there's Uppel, who was another unexpected standout player in last season's Major 1 finals with Fincheck and Cantry. That trio managed a 6th place overall in finals, however split for this season. That paved the way for this new lineup to come together in Week 3. And so far, very much so good for this trio, who have managed a 6th, 3rd, and a 5th in their 3 weeks together. This just goes to show how, despite a rough start to the year, he's still one of EU's best. Keep an eye out for this trio landing at Rolling Blossoms Farm, because lately they really have been blossoming in every way. With so many teams still fighting for a spot at the Global Championships and looking for FNCS glory, this season is guaranteed to be a banger.
Welcome to the FNCS ProAm. Welcome to the FNCS ProAm.
Step to the throne with confidence. Yellow bunch of clothes with an origin. Gave it a crowd, won't ever back down. Take me to the city and we break me down. Been on the ground for the loot and the gold. We been locked in before you was on. Me and my squad stay goes on hard. Steady take a loop, put it up like a god. One pump, getting out. Two tone, wristwatch. Full set in this thing because we can never stop. Earn this from the grit and the grind every day. We been in the zone, now get ready for the pain. Step to the throne with confidence. Yellow bunch of clothes with an origin. Came for the crowd, won't ever back down. Take me to the city and we break me down. Take to the throne with confidence. Yellow bunch of clothes with an origin. Earn this from the grit and the grind every day. We been in the zone, now get ready for the pain. On the road to greatness, you can never fake this. Step to the throne, cause we royal and y'all face it. Even if y'all hate it, we take go so gracious. Take over the game, not back down to the game.
I am so excited. We are back for Major 2. It's been a very long month waiting to see you guys again. And, of course, our fabulous broadcast talent, and Levin and Takata are with me on the desk. Takata, I haven't seen you on the desk, I think, since Chapter 4 with me. How are you? What's it like to be back?
I'm good. It's been a minute. Yeah, Mini Miner gave me a call. He said, Tokata, listen, I cannot handle these two. I need you to sub for me. No, I'm just kidding. Mini Miner loves everyone on the desk, obviously, but it feels good to be back.
Does he, though, Levin?
I think he likes me. I can't speak for anybody else.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at here. We'll catch up with Mini Miner later on in the show, the traitor. He'll be joined by Taco in the commentary booth. Now, let's talk about the Pro-Am, because this was announced earlier. I was about to say in the month, but it's actually April now. I can't believe it. So it was announced back in March. We're going to have 20 incredible creators going all the way back to the Courage days, my friend. And they'll be competing alongside some of the best pros from the international world of the FNCS. They'll be playing at the Gallon Arena on the 10th of May. That's in Los Angeles. It's going to be hot outside. It's going to be even hotter in the booths because the competition in Reload is going to be fierce. So let's take a look at where this falls in the Fortnite competitive calendar, because we get 2 whole lands this year, 2 juicy lands, 2K.
I've been wanting 2 lands in the Fortnite circuit for a long time. And you mentioned it being Reload, Frankie. That is so exciting for me. From the moment Reload came out as a mode years ago now, you know, I was sort of like, this has to be competitive in a way. I want to see a land in this. I'm so excited to see some of the best creators and pros competing together.
I do want to ask, though, to Carter very quickly, who do you want to meet in the meet and greets? Because I know you're a Fortnite super fan, right?
Yeah, there's meet and greets from creators, pros all over the world. You know, I haven't met Nick A30 in person. That'll be really exciting. It's been a long time since I've seen Ozzy Antics in person, so there's a lot of names that I'm excited to see.
Levin, I know who you want to meet.
Yeah, no, I think for me, it's got to be Courage. Courage, I never got the chance. You know, he's a Fortnite commentary icon. You know, I've been doing this commentary thing for a couple of years. I've always looked up to him. So meeting Courage, I think, would be great.
Yeah, you're going to get some tips.
I need some from him, yeah. No, he's amazing. So he's been doing it a lot longer than I have.
You are a pro. You're your own man, Levin. Let's head, though, to this exciting update, and you can find out how you guys are going to get your tickets. Are you ready?
Welcome to the FNCS Pro-Am.
Get your tickets now. We cannot wait to see you at the Gallon Arena in Los Angeles. Now let's talk about Major 2, because obviously there's been huge switcheroos, as there always are, between seasons on the map. And the mid-match objectives in particular have been changing the game. And for things with Tayson's Trio 11, things have changed in terms of their personnel as well.
It wouldn't be competitive Fortnite in EU if we don't mention Tayson in some capacity. And this season, like you mentioned, he's playing on a new team. I wouldn't blame some of the audience for not noticing the change, right? But instead of Trulex, they have got Haris in instead. A slight change, which means a change in dynamic, right? Because Trulex was obviously an IGL. He was sharing that responsibility a bit with Tayson. Now Tayson has the full brunt of the IGLing responsibility, and he's got Chicho and Haris, two of the most exciting fraggers in the region alongside him. I'm super excited to see how he fares in that regard. You know, we always knew this team to be a super consistent team, Takata, right? When they were playing with Trulex, that was the thing we knew them for. Maybe not having as much firepower, but always having consistent mid games. And now that they've opted to land at Crime City, one of the strongest POIs in the game, I can't wait to see how they fare from there.
Yeah, exactly, Levin. You might be wondering, how are they able to keep up with this consistency? Well, now in this new season, there's been 3 new vaults added around the map alongside 3 black markets. But what makes Crime City unique? It has the vault and the black market in the same POI. It's the only POI that has both the vault, where you can get your gold, you can get your dilbits, and the black market right beside it that you can use to get those exotics, get those mythics, get that extra loot. So it's going to minimize the risk for this trio in the early to mid game, so they can keep up with that consistency.
And the biggest critique we always had of them last season was like, is this a team that has enough firepower in end games to actually make their consistent games worth something? Now that you have Haris instead of Trulex, in theory, plus with the loot that you're going to have landing Crime City, they have more than enough firepower, I think, to fix some of their end game problems.
Takata, there's another trio that's made a change, but this trio is taking the train.
Oh yeah, Kiduo, Volko, and Cringe. When you're talking about mythics, right? The strongest mythic weapon is at the new train. It's not the same as last season. Now you can get the mythic Sentinel pump shotgun from this train. And not only that, there's also an NPC that once eliminated will drop the unstoppable medallion. That's gonna boost your movement speed. So if you're looking to play aggressive in the early mid game, even just have better chances at fighting overall, you have the only shotgun in the game where you can hit 200 pumps and one-shot your enemies. So hopefully this trio will be able to use that moving forward.
Yeah, and I've really got my eyes on Kiduo in particular, right? Leading this team, the IGL, the voice. You know, Kiduo spent a lot of this season playing alongside Shark and Chap, and when he was playing with those two guys, you know, Shark and Chap, these are two of the most exciting names, two of the best, you know, up-and-coming fraggers in the scene. Everyone's looking at them as star players. And there were a couple people who said, oh, maybe Kiduo's going to hold them back, right? Is he going to be able to be a good enough IGL to put them in the right positions? And since they split up, Kiduo's been doing great without them, you know, the things have been looking good. And so I like to see him continue to maybe prove some of the doubters wrong and show that he is a top IGL. And with Cringe and Volko, the chemistry, the cohesion looks good. I'm excited to see what he can do.
Takata, I know you're a bit an objective geek. So which of these do you think plays into a stronger game plan?
Ooh,
the train or the train or the black market. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, the train has the best shotgun in the game, right? But it doesn't have as much loot as you get with Crime City. So, you know, there's pros and cons to it. We'll honestly just have to see kind of the play style of both trios. I think Tayson's one is going to be more consistent overall, but if Kiduo wants to frag out with his trio, then they have the capacity to do so.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think the big thing is obviously just in this lobby, right? You're trying to get a win or just be in the top 5 consistency. I think enough games with that kind of loot, you've got to think you're in the consistency places. So maybe just getting a win and getting it done early.
Yeah. Well, we've got another win for you guys now, because you might be missing Mini Miner on the desk, and I have to admit I am. But you're going to be blessed when we head into game, because he's going to be casting with the wonderful Best Taco. So let's see them now. How are you guys?
Thanks so much, Frankie and the team. But Minnie, the ball knowledge is just so extensive on the desk. We figured, why not just bring that into the cast? So really excited to have you here with us, especially for this Group 1 kicked off. But I think picking your brain a little bit on a couple of other teams, one I got to start off with is Podesai, Esqueeze, and Artskill, because we know how much of a travesty they kind of had to deal with in that Major 1 final. So all they're really looking for at this phase is to get their seat on the battle bus for the Major 2 finals, and it starts with being uncontested, surely.
Yeah, uncontested. They seem to have done pretty well whilst uncontested. They have not done that great when they've been contested. 30th place in one of the divisional finals when they were contested. 17th and 18th when they were uncontested. So I feel like this is a trio that are going to need to get a victory royale today. I think they have what it takes, but the consistency isn't quite there for them so far. So keep an eye out for that trio. And I was looking at the playlist. I was looking at who's going to be playing, and I noticed there's a Welsh player playing. So I'm going to be mentioning him. Of course, it's Cade. Of course, it's Ian. And it is Ivan, which is going to be playing today, landing down there towards the Masked Meadows area. Originally uncontested, so I was thinking, yeah, surefire, guaranteed victory royale for this trio, but now it looks as though they have been contested, Taco. And what's interesting about this is that both teams haven't really had that much experience together. They've just both got together going into the play-ins, and only Ivan has actually had experience in set lobbies landing at this drop spot. So really interested to see whether that can be just a bit of a free-for-all.
Yeah, and Ivan's going to need all that experience because he wants to find his qual in his second ever FNCS finals. But fresh takes with some old and veteran players, but we'll see what more is going to have to take place for a lot of our other teams left standing here. So, Frankie, what have you got for us?
Thank you very much. Well, one of the trios I've got for you is an existing trio who have had some surprising results since Major 1, and I don't mean in a bad way, 11-2K.
Yeah, maybe not even surprising, right? After their excellent third place in the major finals, you know, when you look at this team, Vanya, Marius, Pixie, a lot of people were wondering whether or not the momentum would continue. And I think it's safe to say it has. You know, you look at a team in EU this season who's been super consistent. There haven't been many. There's not been like that one standout team. There's been up and down performances from all of the top teams. But these guys, in terms of average placement, have been the second most consistent of any of the teams we've seen in these divisional finals. They've looked exceptional at times. Takata, they're the team in this lobby competing today who have the most victory royales in set lobby finals. So I think they're an absolute shoo-in to qualify today and probably win a game. We might only see them for 1 or 2 games before they get out of this lobby. But I think one of the key things about them that I've really liked, when I analyzed them last season, one of my biggest critiques of them was in like top 2 situations where it's like the final 3v3 between teams, they just looked really wobbly. Like a lot of the time, they looked really wobbly, looked really nervous, were terrible in my opinion in those situations. In fact, if you actually look at it, last season, they were in 8 top 2 situations. They only won 1 of them, right? Yeah. That's a lot of second place. That's a lot of extra points you're leaving off the board. This season, they've been in 10 top 2 situations. They've won 6. So they've already improved in that regard. I think they're looking a lot stronger, a lot more confident. I'm really impressed with these guys so far.
100%. They had that difficulty converting the top 2s into the victory royales, but how have they been able to do it this season? Well, win condition is the heal off meta, and this trio drops at Flooded Frogs. And you might be thinking, Tokata, what do you mean Flooded Frogs? That was last season. They got the season wrong. Well, no, there's more to it, because right under Flooded Frogs, you have Magic Mosses, where is the only mythic Chug Jug on the map, the only vending machine where you can purchase Chug Splashes, and they land right above it and have the perfect opportunity to rotate through there, get all the heals, get everything they need to close out these end games. But Levin, the trio, Marius, I know you want to talk about him.
Yeah, no, I think when you look at Marius as an individual, oh my goodness, he has been cooking this season. I've been so impressed with him, right? Because when you look at, you know, him as a player, his trajectory has been really interesting. When he sort of burst onto the scene last year, you know, a lot of people expected him to sort of go from, you know, strength to strength and keep on rising in duos. It didn't quite work out that way. And even at times last season, when they were, you know, considered a top team in the region, at times he didn't always look like he fit in. It was a bit like, oh, is he really, you know, the top fragger we all thought he could be? This season, it has not been a doubt at all. This guy has been playing out of his mind. When you look at some of the statistics to Carter, damage dealt in divisional cup finals this season, he ranks in 2nd. Damage ratio, he's 6th. You know, eliminations, he's 15th. Assists, 6th. Like, he's been one of the best fraggers in EU this season, without a shadow of a doubt. And I hope it continues, because the more he plays like this, the more this team is likely to be a contender come Major 2 finals.
Look, it will continue with how lethal Marius has been looking and how crucial you kind of need that fragging power in these types of matches, not only for the consistency, but for securing enough loot to be able to get those victory royales. So, you know, I can almost guarantee that we'll see them qualifying today.
When you look at the Group 1 lobby list, there's definitely another trio that sticks out. Sky, Scroll, and iDrop. They haven't necessarily had quite the same results, though, as Vanya's trio, have they, Levin?
it's not been as high-flying, right? You look at the transition from like Major 1 to Major 2. Vanya, they sort of had a great end to the season and has continued. iDrop's guys Scroll have had a weird season because this time last season when we were doing Group 1 of Major 1, they were in that group and they were the abundant favorites, right? And they played really well, they qualified through, and I still expect them to do that today, being unconned at Shiny. However, the end of that season wasn't what people expected. They sort of had a bit of an underperformance, and this season they haven't quite been able to reach the heights. It feels like the honeymoon period might have ended a tad bit. They've struggled when being contested. You can see that on that graph. Like, it's very obvious when they've been contested, they're one of the, teams that really struggles. They can't really get out of the bottom 5. But when they are contested, they can still be quite consistent, and they're one of the teams who has a lot of experience winning set lobbies this season. So I expect them to qualify today, but I do have my eyes peeled to Carter on whether or not this team can actually get back to some of the levels we saw from them last season, because it just hasn't been quite as impressive.
Yeah, I love that you alluded to how they were doing so well throughout the start, but all it was that major final that got to them. The good news is they're uncontested today, so, based on previous performances, we should be able to see them qualify at least through consistency, if not a victory royale. But what truly matters for this trio is performing in the major finals if they make it there.
Guys, I've been really good and I haven't discussed what we're wearing at all during this pre-show. It's rare for me. However, I'm now allowed to discuss what we could be wearing. The blast.tv/merch store. That is where you can get your FNCS goodies. I know you guys like to rep this set, so you can do it now. I'll say that again. Blast.tv/merch store to get your FNCS clothing. Let's head over now, though, to a very stylish pair because we need to kick off game number 1 of 5 in tonight's Group 1 Major 2 action. That is a mouthful. I'm now going to bring it's the mini minor of Taco.
Thanks so much, everybody on the desk. But Minnie, so much insight being introduced for this Group 1 stage. And most importantly still, you're going to have 5 games to work with. Keep in mind, it's going to be similar format to exactly in the last season where a win and you're in. That's your ticket to get onto the battle bus. So all these teams are going to be looking for a victory royale. But if you don't get that victory royale, you could still make it off the top 5 in placements after the fact.
Yeah, these are 5 really, really important games for so many of our teams. Of course, if you don't qualify through today, it's only the last chance qualifier in which you can get through to the Major 2 final, so the pressure is really going to be on. And I think this is really where we get to see a first glimpse of which teams are really going to be looking out to maybe perform really well this season, maybe some diamonds in the rough, if you like, some teams that we haven't seen too much of. I'm super excited to get stuck into the action.
Yeah, everybody's kind of been making their predictions based off of how the groups actually even panned out. I know for Group 1 and Group 3, there's definitely some teams that are going to be very noticeable, but we're going to see what takes place here with Group 1, Game 1, ready to go.
And here we go. This is it. Group 1, game number 1. Major number 2, we're kicking things off in style right now. I think there's a lot of teams here that we would expect Taco to make their way through via consistency, via victory royales. But this format, this week, this group, if you like, has provided a few upsets in the past. So will we see another one today?
Well, one thing's for sure is that you can expect to see a little bit of action taking place at some of the contested areas early on, at least until teams are able to establish whether or not some of these drops are actually going to open up based on which teams actually manage to work their way out with the victory royales. But as for right now, Firebro, Lone Wolf Lair, seemingly just going to be split right off the bat. And Sadie Monet, they're going to be a little bit deeper inside the building, but still kind of just trying to get their footing, trying to get a grasp on where exactly their opposition lies, because you can tell they want to close in. They're feeling relatively healthy. It's hard, though, when the proximity alert's going out.
Yeah, we expect those sort of fights to be a little bit more passive in the first game, whilst teams just get a little feel for how things go. Of course, a team that's not likely to be contested today, it's Cringe, Volko, Kiduo. The analysts talked about it at the beginning of the day, how important this train is going to be for their strategy. They're cracking it open right now. The mythic pump shotgun that they're going to be able to obtain from there is going to be really important as well. Of course, as it continues to drive on through, they're going to be able to open it up, get all the loot that's inside. And I think this is a bit of a trade-off for this team. They're going to get less loot from this train alone, but they will, of course, have better loot, if you like, Taco. And what I like about this is, of course, the train spawns in the same place in every single game, so they know exactly where it's going to be, and they can get that pump every single game.
Exactly. It's a super familiar train split for them, but still having to deal with some minor woes. Teams just trying to get a couple of Surtags across the match. And Fletcher Kane as well. That unstoppable medallion is going to be something that Kido Current and Volca are certainly after. But back to focusing in on Cade and Ivan. Keep in mind, Aryan trying to open things up here at Mass Meadows. And while it seems as though Aryan, Ivan, and Cade are doing an excellent job of surrounding the building, shot's not going to connect there for Cade. Snoya definitely happy about that one, but Yasin has got to keep an eye out for what might be lurking behind him. Double collapse nearly from Cade and Aryan, but Yasin just doing what he can, farming a little bit more material, knows that he's going to need to be healthy, and Ivan's got to be careful as well. Doesn't want to find himself overly exposed to any teams that are further south here of Mast.
Yeah, and I think this is where a lot of these fights are going to be taking place here at Mast Meadows, just in that sort of main bank vault. Of course, that's what both these teams are going to be vying for. They're going to be wanting all of that loot that's inside of there. Of course, the dill bits to rotate to the north to get to that black market as well. Going to be so important, as it looks as though Cade's trio have just decided to back off. I think you're right there. They might have noticed there was another team coming on through. Frixify, Panda, and Ben. These guys are looking to try and close in on some players nearby, just outside of Brutal Boxcars right now. And it's these early tags that are going to be so important for these teams. Of course, getting that early damage done early is so important. Getting that Storm Surge damage out of the way is just so crucial, especially going into the first game of competition here.
Problem is they were looking like they might be victims if they're not careful with that positioning. Rizoi, on the other hand, back at it with Khan and Ankido. They want a fight. They want to get some of that early surge online. But Outlaw Oasis proving to be a little bit of a difficult one to break through as far as an engagement is concerned. They know that there's a team up on the mountainside, so they can't afford to go for the high ground fully. They're just trying to collapse onto this team underneath them. Putrix doing what he can to delay as much as possible. Putrix gonna get a huge chunk out of his HP bar, and Kidoi knows he's got the knock. And that's all it takes for the doorway to be opened here. Rizoi now knows full key-in potential. Gonna try and chase it down momentarily, but this is absolute catastrophe here for Putrix's team.
Yeah, really great stuff from this trio, though. We know how good this team are at fighting. Their mechanical ability is great, and I think what was most important then for them there was just the fact that they were able to avoid the shots of Sky and Scroll on that hill that we can see right there. Of course, if things get a little bit messy, Sky and Scroll are going to be easily there to pick up some tags, but the way they were able to actually drop down, block off all of their angles, and take down the opponents right there was really effective. So good start for that team. It's almost the dream start. As now Vanya, Pixie, and Maris. This is the sort of strategy that we've often seen from this trio, roaming around their drop spot, looking for Storm Surge tags. Remember last year, or last season, I should say, they landed that sort of edge map drop down towards the factory, Kappa Kappa factory, and they didn't actually qualify from there whilst being uncontested. So hopefully for them now, they will have learned from that. The analyst spoke about it as well, just being able to convert those sort of top two situations into wins is going to be so vital for this team now, particularly in this sort of format where wins do really matter. But I'm excited to see what this team can do. I think they'll have a definite case to say they're probably the best team in the lobby in terms of their performances this season. And I'm excited to see what they can bring to the table.
But one thing's for sure, Vanya maybe getting a little bit more of a haircut than what he'd bargained for initially. Stormy, not exactly the friendliest barber, but it's all about that early surge damage. Get a glimpse back into what happened with Kolb. He was the lone survivor out of Putrix's trio, and unfortunately won't be standing for much longer. That is an easy cleanup collapse here, and Scroll all the while gonna recognize the fact that, hey, these teams are getting active. We might have an opportunity to go for our damage, but it's just gonna be Dinas. Off, held a little bit at bay here, and this positioning as well from Scroll. He knows that he's got the advantage. These teams are going to have to push in eventually. They could look to tank a little bit of that early storm tick damage without it being too much of a disarray. At the same time, though, Scroll, Hydra, Sky, again, the big thing that everybody's looking for is, can they have that standout win performance? They did it in Major 1 last time, but we know that they're capable of finding a victory royale. The question is their consistency.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely going to be something they're going to learn from, of course, getting into the Major 1 finals, not having the greatest time. But I think that experience is going to be absolutely vital. I know the experience of iDrop is vast, and of course Sky and Scroll, two of the finest players, upcoming players as well, if you like, when it comes to their skill ceiling. They still have a long way to go. They're both only 15, so they still have a long way to go in terms of the what they can achieve in the game. For Vasquez and his team, they're looking to stay a little bit lower down, and this is something that we will see a lot of today, I think. Players driving those vans after claiming the loot inside. This is definitely a bit of a benefit for these teams, but no, it's Kiduo there on the other side that actually takes advantage of that. Vasquez goes down. So does his teammate as well. It's Cringe, Kiduo, and Volko that we know how good this team can be when they're fighting. You can see it in the inventory, mythics galore, and they're really making the most of it. 2 eliminations right there.
It's more so the fact that they knew exactly where Cringe's team was making the approach from, and yet they still fell victim to the cleanup crew here, though. But Floki, he's got other plans in mind. Cringe, Kiduo, Volko, they might be on the receiving end of this, but the 3-2-1 doesn't connect, and now they've been completely revealed. The stealth strategy not actually going to bode very well for them. Currently, Floki just trying to tarp out as much space as possible, try and get a little bit of distance here, but Cringe, Kiduo, Volko, they seem like they're interested in tangoing just a little bit longer here, although keeping tabs on Gavix. Just behind them, lurking nearby in pump power. Kiduo knows they've already got ample amounts of surge damage from those 2 early eliminations, but still, there could always be room for more.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think they'll be brimming with confidence after those first 2 eliminations for that team. Really, really great work from them. I mean, they have that confidence of the loot, as we spoke about earlier from that train. It just gives them that freedom, if you like, just to hop in box, hit a 200 pump. It just really can flip a fight in an instant. There's now Dexy, Artist, and Hutty just outside this sort of a Seaport City area. These guys, of course, land at the factory, which I spoke about earlier. Hasn't quite generated as much success in history, but what they're able to do from it is what's most important, as they're just trying to take advantage of those players sort of boxed up inside of Seaport City and around the other areas. Of course, they'll also be looking back at them. It's not a bad position, though. I kind of like this sort of it being in between 2 teams. If you don't get beamed like that, though, as Dexy does get cracked, that's a difficult situation for him.
Yeah, and it's tough, too, because it didn't seem as though they had a whole lot of heals as far as their loadouts were concerned. So they're going to likely have to try and commit for a fight, and soon. And a team that's kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum is going to be Marius's. And Marius has been on absolute demon time. I mean, one of our clear favorites for today's Group 1, and for good reason. The Des highlighted it perfectly. As far as their come up since their performance outside of Major 1, these guys have just been on a rampage, it seems like, and it's going to continue. They have so much time with all the resources at Flooded Frogs to hang around.
Sure. So now we get to see this fight for Cade, Iron, and Ivan. Just outside of Mars Meadows here. I think we'll see a lot of these sort of fights taking a little bit longer, as they're sort of round 2 of the fight that we saw at the bank. It's Neuer's team that, of course, that will be contesting them all day. They're just trying to find angles here. CK trying to do that, Iron as well. So we got She-Will, Misha on the screen. Of course, Misha, a player that still hasn't quite had as much success as he would have liked since no longer playing with Teeny. Actually made a grand finals or major finals since then, so he'll be looking to try and find a little bit of form. But it's these fights right here. These are the moments for trios and teams that really make all the difference, because both teams will need the surge. And for now, it's a bit of a stalemate, because nobody wants to make that big mistake. Nobody wants to take that risk, which is kind of what you need, Taco, in these fights. You need that one player just to say, right, I'm going to hop in, try and make a play and hit a max damage.
And the problem is, both of these teams looking worse for wear because of it. Neither of them really profiting here. Yasing, though, going to finally connect a couple of nice shots, but not willing to fully close in on that distance. The intention just seemed to be get a little bit of surge online and push forward. They know they've got to get to that edge of zone. Teams are already likely going to be holding them the moment that they touch foot inside of the next zone. So have to check back in, see how that's actually boding for them later on. But Lone Wolf Flare, Stormy Right, Arco, still kind of just waiting. And you have to keep in mind, Minnie, there's definitely going to be some effects of surge damage coming into play here for a lot of these teams, because one thing about these group stages for the first matches is things are much slower paced in terms of the eliminations actually racking up, so you know teams are going to be threatened.
Yeah, it's a really difficult balance to find when you're in these sort of situations because, you know, if you look at the meta, you look at the way that the guns are laid out, you see sort of hit, scan, scope weapons, you think, yeah, it's all about sort of boxing up and sort of playing Surge Towers. But as we saw last season, it was a lot of sort of box-to-box activity. So I think as the day goes on, we'll definitely see a lot more of that progressing. And I think we'll see a lot of our teams that do opt to maybe decide, okay, we need a win. Maybe we're sort of lower down the leaderboard. Let's try and go for some surge tags earlier on. Let's take a fight that maybe we won't or weren't taking earlier on. Maybe in the case of Cade's team, for example, we didn't see them aggress too much in 2 instances. Maybe that'll change as we go further on. But this first game, just get it out of the way. Make sure that you're not going to be going down too early. That's the most important thing.
For sure, but Cade lurking at the bottom of Jake Buka's surge base. Doesn't seem as though he's been flagged out just yet. Ivan and Aryan try and provide as much backup as possible. Truly, Jake Buka and Zen could be in a world of trouble here. They're so distracted though, Mini, but Ivan, he's gonna get spotted by a different team entirely, completely exposed. Team in the surge base now fully on red alert here. They are not gonna allow Cade, Aryan, and Ivan progress any further. In fact, they're trying to jump immediately into the box here. Cade gonna try to get some return fire online, but instead it's an all-out scramble. The team from a distance still peppering them as they go, and Aryan knows he's got to come up big with a huge connection shot, otherwise they're gonna get keyed from 2 different directions.
Yeah, look at their Storm Surge as well, 77 below. This is going from bad to worse for this trio. They didn't capitalize on those fights earlier on, not at the bank, not just outside of the POI. This is where things start to get a little bit desperate for them as Cade tries to get inside of the box with the kneecapper. Doesn't quite go as well as Ivan does the same, swinging, trying to get some hits through, connecting with so many. Jake Buka's the only one left, and it is a success for the trio. They're all still alive, albeit 2 down.
Problem though, Aryan, he can't hold the walls as well as try to revive his teammates at the same time. 2 separate teams looking in to what just unfolded here. Finally, a moment to breathe though, and that's all that Aryan really needs. But it's the fact that all you can hear is the thwacks, Vinny. It's just non-stop home runs trying to be hit across the board here. An absolute chaos fest, but Aryan, that was the kind of damage that they needed. It's gonna buy them some time. They're still in a relatively rough position, but being 539 above the surge is more than enough currently.
I want to watch this again. I mean, this is absolutely unreal. The way that Iron's just able to hop right in the box. I think it was Ivan that did a lot of the damage. Iron just cleaning up there at the end. I mean, that is an element of that kneecapper that is definitely going to be very important this season. We talk about it so often as a mobility sort of item, as we see Scroll doing that right now, but he's lost 2 of his teammates. I think we're definitely going to see some close-range encounters with that kneecapper, but for now, Scroll's got a major problem on his hands. He's lost both Eyedrop and Sky.
Fortunately for him, at least the team that was nearby, much more interested in actually getting into zone, but they might linger. It's going to be a tough position, though, for Scroll to actually dig his way out of. I'm not sure that even a reboot scenario necessarily puts them in a much better position, might extend their opportunities, but as far as looking for that win and you're in scenario is concerned, many have to expect that some of these other teams a little bit better poised for that.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely a lot of teams in here that will look to try and go for that win. Of course, now that they've been able to get that early Storm Surge damage, I think for Eyedrop, Sky, and Scroll, it's about trying to get as many points as possible out of this game now. I mean, you never know when you're going to need them, right? The points might come in clutch later on in terms of consistency, so I'm sure we'll see those guys thriving in future games, but there's still hope, of course. There's Artist, Hutty, Vexy, also in the Storm, and I think this is something that we are going to see a little bit of today, as well as probably the rest of the season as well. Taco is a lot of Storm tanking. There are a lot of course, a lot of white heals inside of the meta. I know Takata talked about it at the beginning, where it's going to be a big element when it comes to the end game, but even sort of the early to mid game as well, just being able to almost skip that mid game and sort of stay inside of the Storm for such prolonged periods of time. We see Scroll, Eyedrop, and Sky now back together as a trio doing the same. It's going to be so important.
Carmen Jacobs immediately knocked, eliminated. Carmen made it look too easy here. Slaxay, though, gonna receive return fire here. Polish now trying to get that tag team combination, but Carmen, he's just falling too incredibly low. He's gonna have to back up for a moment. Tricks, fortunately, gonna be able to bail his partner out of his current position. but a lot of commotion, pulling so much attention their way. Polish, Piros, Blasi, they've got to be careful as well. They know that there are other teams looking to collapse, but Piros, he's still completely focused on where Carmen and Trix are at. Blasi might be able to get sneak shot, playing around the tree, a little bit of natural coverage, but he knows there's other teams just too close by. He wants to see if he can find an angle, but then this grenade gonna ensure that Blasi's able to get a little bit healthier than what he was just sitting at. And Trix and Carmen, it's a choice at this stage, Minnie, but looking for the fight might just be better off here. Instead, they're just going to continue trying to disengage as much as possible. They don't feel healthy enough to fight.
Yeah, in those sort of situations, you either have to just disengage entirely and just work with what you've got, or try and close out the fight as quickly as possible. With the amount of teams that are nearby, I just don't think they really could have gone for that full elimination. So I think it's a smart play here to just disengage. The problem is, though, if you look at where the zone is, there's so many teams now they have to sort of rotate through. Players looking down from above, players sort of towards their back as well. It's going to be a really, really difficult rotation for now. This team is just a duo. Really not going to be easy at all, as now Storm Surge will start to sort of kick in as well pretty shortly for some of our teams. And this is just not the greatest situation. And again, I think this is where this team just need to try and think, right, let's just try and get into those placement points. Let's try and ensure that we're not going to waste this game.
Problem is they've got to scale up some of the mountain face spanning around brutal boxcars, and they've also got to deal with an entirely fresh trio right behind them. But the team's already elevated and boxed up. They're going to be the ones posing the most threat here. Carmen nearly Sub-Zero directly into Artsville, but Artis is going to manage to push him back. Carmen, 3 HP and a dream, it seems like. Don't think that water sprite can be able to buy him much more time. Artis, Dexy, and Huddy, they are taking full advantage of having already been positioned inside of the zone. It is just easy pickings, or at least that's what it seems like, but they need these eliminations, Minnie. They would like a refresh because they know mats go quickly when you're dealing with some of this elevated terrain.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, they do have the player advantage here. They have the health advantage as well. It looks as though Trix and Carmina look like they are actually ticking for Storm Surge. And yeah, it's going to be Carmina that does go down to the Storm Surge, I believe, there. Trix also the same, just getting tagged. And as soon as you hear that crack as a player, as soon as you understand that the team next to you are shambles, they don't have that much damage, they only have 2 players in their team, you have to close on through. And that's exactly what this team have just done in that situation. As we get to see some more great plays here from Artis, who's just looking back sort of towards the Storm. Really nicely done from him there. Bolstering this team's loot, some more eliminations as well. Huge for that team.
Tayson, on the other hand, he's what they need to connect with most is those late game refreshes. That is something that Tayson and Chicho have notoriously struggled with. Originally, they were with Trulex. Now they switched out for yet another Balkan player in Paris. But Mini, they're looking like they might be in a pretty nicely set position, at least in comparison to some of these teams that are kind of spanned a little bit further outside of that center zone. Sky, iDrop, Scroll, largely just Sky and Scroll at this point, though. iDrop, unfortunately, haven't been eliminated, but that's a big pickup here for Sky and Scroll. They're not going to be able to make it to the body, though. They know they're getting cut off from the rest of the lobby, hoping to not get focused in the process. Sky does manage to pick up some much-needed siphon materials, but it's still a very difficult position to play from. They know that high ground could take notice of them at any given moment. Another big knock, though, for Sky. It is just going to continue buying them more and more time.
Look at where the zone is, though. They've got to make a max pull rotation here. So Sky and Scroll, they have to make a decision. Do they rotate early? They try and get a little bit of extra loot, but of course time needs to be on their side for that to happen. They need to get out of here as quickly as possible, rotate on through. They do find the elimination there on Sapphire Bro, and we get to see exactly how that went down. Sky getting some really nice tags there on Sapphire Bro, of course, can't really escape. And that's crucial for that team because it gets them right above the Storm Surge threshold.
Floki and Snazy, though, they are looking to be in the most optimal position currently, all the way up on the high ground. Icy just trying to do what they can. Floki as well, continuing. You just spray at this moment, but it's going to be difficult as is for anybody to even try and challenge for the high ground, much less make it the secondary height. So all of that congestion that's starting to pull into those lower layers, it's going to pose a huge threat to teams like iDrop, Sky and Scrolls, because again, they're working from the P.E.K.K.A zone as is, and they're trying to push forward, but Snazy connecting all the way across this mountain range mini. This is such an optimal position to be in.
Eliminations here, I think, for Sky and Scroll. I mean, this is a team, of course, that did duo up. They were a duo, so they're going to have to use all of that experience, maybe even communicating in Danish now. They can speak in their native language to each other without having to worry too much about eye drop in this situation, but they're just trying to squeeze as many placements out as possible. As Hutty, Arsid, and Dexy, these guys have been on an absolute tear this game. What's that? 6 eliminations. Huge amount for this team. It gives them that freedom, that flexibility in endgame, just to play the way that they like. And you can see the gold splashes coming through here as well, just allowing them to get right to that front side of zone. You see them eyeing up another elimination. It's just these frags, these late game refreshes that are going to be so important for them. We know they can do it. And look who it's against. It's against Vanya, Pixie, and Marius. It's not a team you really want to be aggressing at this stage of the game, but they survive. They live to tell the tale, and so does Vanya.
Yeah, the main thing was that Dexy and Artist looked like they had almost cut off Vanya's trio for a moment, but Marius, Pixie, they're wasting no time whatsoever. Kiras, unfortunately, just another victim. But Pixie absolutely beamed from above. Got to keep tabs on what's happening overhead. So now that's going to force this trio to go for a pause. They're going to have to get some heals going. And all the while, Floki, Icy, but that was a massive chop there. Snazy looked like he might have potentially dropped to grab some loot, but either way, getting eliminated, not intentional.
Oh no, Snazy, that is not ideal whatsoever. They're still up at the backside of zone there, Floki and Ice, so I can only assume that he just tried to go down for the loot. And this is what we're going to see right now. Let's see what actually ended up happening. No! It's a mistake, it's a misplay. You have to run, you have to sprint using that kneecapper to avoid the fall damage. And I think he just pauses just as he's about to fall down there, and unfortunately to his demise. But now this opens the door right wide open for Hutty, Artis, and Dexy, who now see that there's only a duo up on height. This could be their time. We saw them getting so many eliminations. Fall damage again for Floki. It's all come crashing down. And for that team, they're going to have to rethink going into game 2.
Artist, Dexy, and Hutty, though, they waste absolutely no time. They are straight to the high ground, hoping to not make the same mistakes as the members they just took out. But Dandapuza, Eltenzi, they're just trying to remain unseen. Everything is so chaotic underneath Dexy's team here. As Squall still barreling through, finds another elimination onto Pixie. Vanya's team now potentially sabotage here in the process. They're going to be fully eliminated. That Game 1 Victor Royale won't belong to them, but it's setting up nicely for Team Artis.
Really, really nicely indeed. They've got that exotic Chug Jug as well, so things do go down to a heal-off. Things are looking very, very strong for them, but the duo of the day so far is Sky and Scroll. They're continuing to plow through this lobby. 8 eliminations between the two of them, but look at their HP. They're going to need these refreshes sooner rather than later. They're going to need that Siphon, which they get straight onto Chicho. Perfect shot from Scroll to close out that one. They do get the loot, but you can see that their builds, their materials are still lacking. They're going to need even more, and they're going to get even more as Collapsy goes down to Sky there as well. He's going to have to try and wait for that Siphon to come through. Gets another huge tag onto Gavix, and he is on a tear right now.
There is no reason for Sky and Scroll to be having this much success. They don't even have a time to get Shield online. Finally, they're going to be able to pull it through, but what are these shots currently making the impossible happen with 0 mats whatsoever? Berg, another victim in the downfall underneath, but Artskill, Bonuside, Esui's now controlling front side low, but at the same time, they have to keep in mind what lies directly above them. Squeeze, another victim here to Scroll, and Scroll batting for the fences. Finally going to find himself getting put down in the dirt, though. Artis, Hutty, and everybody in a celebratory manner now, because Artis, Hutty, Dexy, they know they've got this one on lock.
This is surely going to be the moment. It's a 3v1 situation. Artis, Hutty, and Dexy are the very first team to make their way into the Major 2 finals. An excellently played game, Taco. High ground dominance. Really, really excellent eliminations in the mid-game as well. And just closing it on out with quite a straightforward win for them in the end.
It's just the heads-up awareness. They were hovering in that secondary height layer for so long. They had an opportunity. They got a little bit tangled up with Vanya's team, but everything just came down to the fact that as soon as Snazy fell, that one mistake was the opening path here. Hutty immediately looks up. Let's chop these guys down. They've got nothing. He knew at the moment that that trio turned into a duo, that was their chance to strike. And from the mid-game refreshes, up to that closing moments here, Vinny. They just did everything right, and a victory royale to guarantee their spot in the Major 2 finals. But they're not the only ones that had some positives coming into play, so let's see what the Des has to say.
Thank you very much, guys. Congratulations to Hutty, Dexy, and Artis, because we'll be seeing them in the Major 2 Grand Finals in a few weeks' time. Takata, as you're fresh on the desk this year, why don't you give me thoughts on that end game? Because it feels like there was a trio that got particularly unlucky, and one of the players was Snazy.
Yeah, Snazy, Floki, and Ice, they have not only the exotic Jug from their drop spot, but they also had high ground and everything they needed to close that match off. But when you got the kneecapper, you got that bat, you got a sprint jump to not take fall damage, and I don't think Snazy was able to get that jump off, unfortunately, leading to his demise. And then Artist capitalized on that, took high ground, and closed out the match. So overall, congratulations to the trio.
But let's talk about the winners. Come on,
Yes.
Dexy, Hutty, and Artist. I mean, this is one of those games in this format where like you have so much chaos going on down below that like the team that ends up winning can almost sort of skate by, right? To be fair to them, they were incredibly proactive in this endgame. And if you know anything about Hutty as a player, that's no surprise. You know, obviously they made the play to chop height, which was great and well-timed, and they were able to take it, biding their time on second height as Taco called out. But, you know, even before that, right, you saw them going for pre-edit plays on teams that were very proactive, always looking for opportunities, not just letting their match play out and letting the game pass them by. And whenever you play that proactively in these type of lobbies, you're going to give yourself opportunities to win games just like this. Dexy's no stranger to winning in these types of lobbies as well. I remember he used to always be a player you could expect to win a game back in duels with Eclipse as well. So no surprise seeing these guys make that win happen, but really well played from them.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be giving you even more information, all the talking points from game number 1, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Group 1 of Major number 2 in the FNCS. And if you missed Group 1's opening match, then you missed a treat because Hutty, I should say, Artist and Dexy, they've booked their spot in the Major 2 Grand Finals in a few weeks' time. But it was a very closely run thing, as it always is in the end game. And one player who nearly solo clutched things out for his trio was Tayson Levin.
Yeah, I mean, if you were following, that team during the end game, I don't think we were specifically on them, observers watching straight, but if you saw any of the drone spots, they were always in great positions in that end game, sort of playing how you'd expect Tayson to play, really. There were a lot of situations where, obviously, you can see here on mid ground looking for opportunities, then as the zone was moving around the hill, they were sort of playing on low ground quite a bit, and again, they were just playing basic but good Fortnite. There was a point here where obviously Chris goes down, but Chicho and Tayson are still going to be able to make things happen to Carter. And at the end of the day, this is a team who we highlighted at the start of the day as a team who you can expect to be in endgames consistently, right? And so, are they going to win a game? I'm not sure. Last season, when it was Tayson, Chicho, and Trulex, they didn't win a game in groups, but they were super consistent. I think we'll probably see the same here today.
Exactly. This trio's perfect at minimizing risk, right? Like you said, and we mentioned earlier, they play incredibly consistent. And in my opinion, they're going to at least qualify through consistency if they don't end up getting a victory royale before that. So seeing them in the top 3, top 5 is going to be a pretty common factor for the rest of these matches.
Well, let's take a look at the standings and see where Tayson and his trio have got to. And they are currently in a not too shabby 4th position. Just the 4 eliminations. Is that something you think will kind of get a little bit, I guess, into the double digits as we move forward to Carter for this trio?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's all about minimizing risk, but when you're talking about risky situations, another duo or trio, sorry, I mean, I said duo, I got it confused because it's Sky and Stroll. I mean, they lost eye drop way, even 7th or before 7th zone, but that duo chemistry was showing strong. They were eliminating player after player, continuing all the way throughout that late game, having lost one of their trios already, Levin, but it wasn't a problem for them.
Yeah, look, obviously, big up to Dexy and them lot for, securing a spot in the finals. But this was the highlight of that game. Sky and Scroll spent a lot of that end game, not just as a duo, but without any shields as well. They were alive for so long without even any shields. This elim here that Sky gets is just ridiculous. There is no way he should be alive in that position. They survived for so long. You mentioned the duo chemistry that these two have. I asked questions about whether their form was going to be as good as it has been last season. If they're starting to pick things up now, and if they can keep playing like that, they're going to shut me right up.
It almost felt like a miracle, though, boys, because Scroll was on his own in Zone 5. He was able to res Sky, and then the magic truly happened. I just wonder, thinking about the brains of players when that happens, do you think when they're able to at least get that res and when the game was almost finished for them, do you think they kind of go hell for leather in that final end game, Levin? They're just like, right, we're lucky to be here. Let's just risk everything and kind of run it down almost.
Yeah, I think there's different approaches from players, right? I think it depends on sort of your confidence level, how you rate the lobby around you, because it's some people are like, okay, we're a duo, let's just try to get the most out of it and survive as long as we can. Others, like Sky and Scroll in that situation, just go, well, we're still two of the best players in the lobby. We'll do what we like. I don't care that we're a duo. We will do exactly what we like. And yeah, I'm excited to see if they can transfer that still while playing as a trio as well and having eye drop there as an extra bit of firepower.
That's what I love about trios too. Sorry to cut you off, Frankie, but it's just even when you have that duo chemistry in the trios format, you're still able to do so much and get so far with so little going into the later parts of these matches.
I would love to see how fraggy Marius was getting, because we talked about the fact that he's one of the best fraggers, if not the best fragger in this lobby. So let's see some sweet, sweet highlights from him and his trio, Levin.
Yeah, I think we might have set him up here after watching Scroll, to be fair to him. It's I don't think he's going to quite reach those levels. But, this team was a team that we saw in that last game, in the end game. Again, they're a team I think we can expect to see win a game. They're going to be in these end games. They're going to be fighting for power positions and taking up a lot of space in these lobbies. And they have all the firepower and the talent to do so. Got caught off a bit here at times in this end game. But, it's the first game. Let them warm up into it. He ain't got all 6 games. I kept getting that confused at times last season. But, they have a couple more games to sort of find their rhythm here.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to get a bit more practice in maybe. I think it was Huddy, Dexy, and Artist that actually went for some pre-edits onto Marius early on into that end game. So they had a lot of trios attacking them, but they still made it very far.
Can I just say, in position 3 right now, so Art Skill, X-Squeeze and Podesite, so Art Skill's just come into this trio, as the casters mentioned earlier. This is a trio I'm expecting to see more frags from, because I spoke to Podesite for an In the Lobby earlier this week, and Podesite was giving it the big chat. He was like, you know, it's the Poda split. I can't do the French accent, I don't want to offend everyone. But no one's going to come up to the Poda split because we're so good off spawn, we're so good at fighting that no one wants to challenge us. But you know what, only 4 Olymps, boys. Yeah, okay, fine, you made it to the end game, you played a really good, intelligent game, but I still want to see you showing off. I don't know about you guys, Dakota.
I'm going to be nice to French people since I will be in Lyon, so I'm going to say only good things about my compatriots.
Oh, mon ami Levin, c'est très ennuyeux aujourd'hui. Let's go to our casters for game number 2. It is ready with Mini Miner and Taco.
Thank you so much, Frankie. No French from us, but we are ready here for game number 2. I mean, Taco, that very first game didn't disappoint. It seemed to have it all, but now I'm ready for game number 2. Let's get straight into it.
Yeah, you want to talk about action picking up in the final moments. Game 1 certainly able to deliver, knowing that we still have 4 more matches here to deal with, though, Minnie. Some teams now having a chance to kind of let things simmer out, get a little bit more of their nerves about them, but some of these early game engagements might get a little bit more aggressive off rip here. Lone Wolf Lair, Fibro, Kente just trying to escape, but Monet, he's actually the one on the run here, just doing everything he can, parkour every which direction to get out of Kente's sights, but still, Sadie knows he's gonna have to provide a little bit of backup here, but Monet just straight into the perils of the same team. No escape here provided just yet. Playing this in a 2 versus 3 though. Oazy not gonna give up hopes just yet. He knows the other team still a little bit weak.
Yeah, much different complexion to this off-spawn fight than what we saw earlier on in the very first game. It's all started to go crazy at the very beginning. It was a little bit more peaceful in the first time out. Kentic, Fibro, and Chucks look like they're able to close on out and hopefully for them finding this final elimination without too much concern. Sadie there with the pump and dump is always gonna fall short to 3 players, let alone with some better loot inside. But that's a really nice start for that team. Of course, we saw them struggling at the beginning of the day to really get a hold on it, but no, this is it. This is where Kappa Capta's out was uncontested, of course, after that first game victory for Hutty, Dexy, and Artist. A couple of teams now landing here, and it's all starting to boil over. Everyone's starting to fight.
Yeah, nice return pick off though from Sharif. Not going to be able to find that full elimination just yet, but you can tell he wants it still. Trying to be mindful. He's got Finn backing him up, but New sitting in the underbelly of the Kappa Kappa factory, and Sharif knows he's got to get a move on. It's 2 versus 2, and that's all it takes. Finn gonna find that next elimination here, but first and foremost, Shakiru just bouncing on by. Finn nearly on the receiving end of that one, and Sharif gonna now be forced to play the defensive measure.
Difficult situation right there. I mean, it's difficult when you're playing in a drop spot that you don't necessarily know as much. I mean, of course, this is what we're going to see today. We might see teams switching up their drop spots to try and land a new drop, but no, Jonah gets absolutely lasered by Finn right there. That was unbelievable. And it allows them to finish off that fight nice and early so they can hopefully get the reboot going here. But we get to see, I think, from the other angle here as Finn just sneaking around. And again, it's these little aspects, these little intricacies of these drop spots that you're not necessarily as aware about that really are important. They show that when you're landing at a new drop spot, especially in this sort of format.
Yeah, they're not the only team being contested here either. Yasin just breaking into the wall here. Nisha had no chance to really even respond. Cade continuing to close in. Cade actually going to be knocked as well. Eliminations cleaned up across the board here as Yasin going for the double revive now, but a big play through Mask Meadows, Mini. That's going to open up a huge doorway as far as being able to play Black Market and everything else is concerned.
Yeah, again, a much different sort of way that fight went about in this game. We saw a lot more aggression that time, and we saw, of course, a team coming out on top, which we didn't see in the very first game. So already some key differences here in game number 2. Dinas, Giras, and Franek, a team that have been performing very well this season. I know Levin mentioned it at the beginning of the show. They've been able to get victory royales. They've been able to pick up wins and play quite consistently in these sort of divisional cup formats. So they seem to have it all. But for now, their main concern is this team below. It's Ankido, Rezoy, and Khan, a team that we highlighted earlier as such a fraggy team. They have so much potential when it comes to fights. And for now, it's starting to be a little bit of a sort of stalemate, if you like, with how these guys are playing it. They're one team on low ground, one team on height. Nobody really wants to make too much of a play as of right now. They're just looking for that first crack tacker. They're looking for that first beam with this burst SMG or any of their weapons that they have, because this is what really can get these fights started.
Problem is, the longer this goes on, the worse off and both teams are going to be for it already. Frenek doesn't even have any materials left over, just kind of depending on his other teammates to sort of play those defensive positions. Surely only a matter of time, though, before we get a conclusion to that exchange. List of shiny chefs, though. Sky, iDrop, Scroll, looking to continue their tear from that first match. And unfortunately, it's going to be Telio and Snake that are just trying to see if they can even escape in the first place. They are being fully pushed out of the map at this point.
Yeah, this is really nice here from Scroll. You can see him just getting a much different angle to the rest of his teammates, and this is really what's helping them pick up so many tags. You can see Sky from the other side, and Scroll just finding a different angle to beam from, gets a couple of cracks onto the opponents as Tilio, Snack, and Etsy, all they can do is just run away. Of course, with their proximity to Shiny Shafts, I think Sky, Scroll, and iDrop just see this as a perfect opportunity to pounce, and you can see why. Of course, Sky leading in terms of damage in that very first game. I mean, what a performance it was from them. I think that's going to give them so much confidence, so much momentum here going into the rest of the day.
Especially if they didn't already have it, which I'm hard pressed to believe it wouldn't be the case. Sky and Scroll, they've been heavily commended, and I think that first game was the primary example of exactly what this team's capable of. But we need to get a little bit more of that iDrop into the mix. And once we see all three of them going crazy, that's where I think the true success points will really start to come to fruition here. Cringe, Volko, and Kiruo, though. Scenic views over by the Magic Moss's Black Market. We saw them in a pretty strong position throughout the majority of that first lobby mini, but it kind of just fizzled out for them.
Yeah, I think they could do with a few more splashes, though. Only got about 6 between all of them, 6 stacks of them. As now Franek, Dinas, and Giras. This is a fight that we saw early on. A fight that wasn't really a fight, to be honest. It was a bit of a campsite, if you like, between all the different players. But now things are starting to get a little bit more aggressive. Giras just playing right up on top, just trying to look down and provide those comms for his teammates as to where they could be in terms of the opponents. I think Tayson there in the sort of north side of the map, you can sort of see very close to that drop spot. Franek finds the angle. Could barely even see Ankido right there, but Ankido definitely didn't see that coming himself, and that's a crucial moment here. Khan's now left as a solo. Not an ideal situation. We know how good he can be, but is he good enough to take out the prowess, the trio, the force of Franek, Dinas, and Giras? And of course, unfortunately for him, the answer's no.
Short-lived victory, though, potentially here for Franek's team, because we saw the likes of what seemed to be Tayson's trio closing in. They overheard some of the action taking place. They likely saw the elimination feed lighting up as well. And Chicho still just choosing to keep tabs inside of a lone surge base, but the rest of his team do believe that they were looking for more aggressive points. Part of it being so close by from that Franek skirmish, but instead, no. Scenic views instead, they're just opting to bide their time, playing these small points of elevation, and just keeping a general scope on where everybody else is at.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's exactly where you want Chicho to be in terms of a position at this stage of the game. You want him in those surge bases, getting those amazing tags like we know he can do. The Sampy, Ziggs, and Brownie, looks like these guys are, or were getting inside of a box. Really, really nicely done, just powering on through. The other team stood absolutely no chance, and those pre-edits, of course, so impactful when you can bring them out and, of course, make sure that the other team aren't aware of what's coming. They can really catch you off guard, so really nicely done from those guys.
The thing is, Minnie, we know that this is one of our least experienced groups. As far as all three of the groups are concerned, Group 1 has a good amount of teams and individuals that just haven't necessarily been in that finals contention position before. So what do you think some of these less experienced teams need to be doing at this point in order to actually find themselves in those winning positions?
Well, I mean, be happy that you're not in some of the other groups, I'd say, for starters. You know, use it as your advantage because, of course, as you mentioned, there are some big names in the other groups. But, you know, it's Fortnite. Zones can change. Your sort of loot can change. Anything can change at a split second. And we saw some of our big names going down in the last game and even previously. So if there are sort of smaller teams in here, you just have to play your strategy. You have to play what you practice. Don't try and deviate too much from that. And ultimately learn from these experiences. Because whether you, of course, qualify or not, it's going to be so vital for them moving forward. But what we have seen in these sort of formats before is genuinely anyone could qualify when it comes to the Victory Royale. So there's going to be some surprises, I'm sure, and it's an opportunity more than anything.
Yeah, I'd almost expect that some of these teams are just going to bank it all on finding the Victory Royale, not even necessarily trying to just confirm placement points. That can be a little bit more difficult when you don't have as much of that tenure underneath your belt in terms of understanding where to establish your surge damage, how to consistently find surge damage as well with the map. Probably frequently rotating. We've already seen some teams switch up their drops, switch up to try and con other spots instead. But one thing's for sure, Yasin's trio definitely happy to find that early success, and we have been seeing a lot of Storm experts throughout the course of today, and I'd imagine this is just going to be a reoccurring theme with how many heals are available.
Yeah, definitely. I think those med mist items as well are sort of ones that you can throw down. They're not really something you're going to use in the end game, so you want to use them at this point in the game. And a lot of people are going to do that. Even the pulse scanner here being used by Jake Buka, Truly, and Zenx. These guys are being able to get an insight into where these opponents are. Of course, going to provide so much valuable insight as they're also just staying inside of the storm using these med mists. And of course, the sprites to heal up, and it's a difficult situation for sort of both teams. You see Nemo in the distance there, trying to look for some tags. For these guys, they almost want to jump in, they almost want to make something happen, but it's Nemo from afar that's just sort of causing them not to be able to do that. The moment they expose themselves outside, they're just going to get beamed. So how they play this is going to be really, really interesting and really vital for the rest of their game.
So unlucky too, because they know Flame already a little bit weak here, having been just bailed out in an earlier fight. But Jake Buka now seeing whether or not he can actually cut through the gap, just continuing try and underneath some of these old edits. It's just too much pressure though being extended from that range, and that's the primary reason why they have to come to such a slow exchange here. Kido, Cringe, and Volko though, they've got wind of where Marius's team is at, and they want this fight.
Yeah, this is a star-studded fight. If I've ever seen one, Marius is looking for an angle. Kido's team, of course, with a loot advantage. That mythic pump shotgun, as we've spoken about so much already. And it's all about just trying to find themselves an opportunity, a gap to attack, as Pixie finds that perfectly with a lovely shot onto Cringe. Gives them that opening in this fight, gives them the upper hand, and allows them to get on the front foot, which is different to how they've been playing it so far. Very, very slow, very much on the low ground, splashing themselves to make sure they have that gold rush effect, which is so important in these fights. Of course, that increased movement speed, the increased pickaxe speed really catches some people off guard when you're in these sort of mid-game fights. And I'm not too sure here, is Kido trying to disengage? It's sort of 50-50, and they may be stuck in two minds. I think that's what they want to do. I think they've understood the ability of the team on the other side. Pixie's not going to miss those sort of shots. And it looks though, yeah, they are going to sort of disengage. But a solid fight there, particularly for Marius, Vanya, and Pixie, of course. Looked like they were on the better side of things there in terms of damage.
Still, can imagine that they would have preferred to just get a clean elimination wipe onto Cringe. It's so unlucky that Pixie wasn't able to actually close in any further after getting such a well-placed pump shot. That is Tayson and Chicha though, spending all of their time inside of Crime City's black market. That's the benefit of having control of such a prime resource turf. You can just stick around as long as you want. Jake Buka, on the other hand, He's getting caught in another exchange entirely, only this time it's in a duo performance scenario. Zen knows he's got to reunite with his other teammate. Jbuka just so incredibly low, but this team not willing to let up the pressure. Etsy can smell the fact that they've got clean eliminations here. They just need to close in.
Remember, Etsy's trio were running away from Sky and Scroll at the beginning of this game, so they've really been able to move up in the world since that difficult situation. What a pump shot onto Jbuka, and secondly, onto the other player as well. Zenk's had absolutely no chance there. Beautiful shots, a collection of connections in terms of headshots, and that's how it's done. That's what you need to turn the tides in a fight, and that fight really had to end quickly, and that's how it's done.
Some of these teams that are kind of flirting with spending a lot of time inside of those early storm ticks, but they do rack up eventually, Mini, and it might only be a matter of time before we start to see some later issues pop up from teams that are spending just a little bit too much time tanking up some of that storm damage. All the while, Squeeze, Podesai, Artskill, they weren't able to convert game one into a victory royale, but second place is a pretty stark improvement. Consistency has been something that has definitely plagued the French trio throughout the course of Major 1, and here they could get a really strong start. If they're able to just get that victory royale, then everything can just be focused on the Major 2 finals game plan.
Yeah, of course, when they were playing with Akira, they actually qualify through that last chance qualifier, so for Podesai and X-Squeeze here, they're going to want to get it done earlier. They're not going to want to relive that stress, if you like, that lack of sleep the night before, the LCQ, the 3-game format, the uncertainty of it. So I'm sure that they'll be wanting to get it done nice and early. It's now Kiduo. Part 2 of the fight that we just saw. It's Vanya, Pixie, and Marius. Inside the box goes Kiduo. Pixie goes down as well. It's all up to Marius to solo clutch. As Cringe goes down as well, it's Kiduo and Volko against Marius. And this is a huge, huge fight against two huge teams.
That's a big blow, though, from Marius. He's going to make sure to at least get the full elimination onto Cringe. Volko, Kiduo now trying to fight back, but this is what Marius does best. He's been on demon time this entire season so far, and this is the reason why Volko now down to his last sliver of HP, and it's not going to make a difference. Marius comes out on top. This fight was inevitable, Mini. We knew that these teams were going to have to clash again the moment that they first tangled over by Flooded Frogs, because they wanted control of the heal resources nearby in Magic Moss's black market. But it's the fact that Marius is able to find these consistent cleanups that are going to make a huge difference, because the reboot now comes back into play.
He's just 1v3'd. He is just 1v3'd Volko, Cringe, and Kiduo, albeit with a little bit of help from some damage from Vanya and Pixie. But the analyst spoke about it at the beginning of the day. This man has been on fire this season, and he doesn't look like he's showing any signs of slowing down. As you correctly mentioned, it's all about now whether that team can sort of pick up the pieces now and get the revive off. But absolutely crucial couple of shots there from Marius, and that's what you need in the team. You need your fraggers to step up at the big moments.
And stepping up is something that Tason's team was certainly starting to do in that first lobby. They know they got another team directly above where they're currently fixated on this hillside. Putrix, Kolb, just trying to get whatever tags they can, sprinkling across the board. Shaco's, though, in a whole world of hurt. The surge storm damage just posing such a huge threat for this fight, and Gabix knows it. He wants to find this next elimination here onto Shaco's, but Shaco's fighting back. Ricky gonna get knocked completely unexpected here. Gabix instead gonna come to a full halt here. He's gonna leave it up to Baloo to close this one out, and you would think health advantage in his favor. Ayad, only one more shot is needed, but a full reconverge. A trio standing tall. They recognize the fact, hey, 2 ticks coming into play. We've got to get a move on into the next zone.
Yeah, huge decision right there for that team. Ricky does go down, though, so Shaco's manages to pick up the Siphon there as well. Absolutely vital for him to stay alive, but it's whether he can actually now make it inside of the zone as he gets the knock onto Belusi there as well. So it's now just up to Gabix. This is a fight. This is a situation that you really wouldn't have said would go in Shaco's way. And much like what we've seen in game number 1, he's just got to try and make the most of this game now as a solo. As there's Belusi's loot he's going to be able to pick up. And that's really turned the tides on that entire fight, Taco. I was not expecting it to go that way. And look at that, the zone pulls back as well. So if he can make it in, he will have the zone advantage. I just don't see it happening. Lack of whites, lack of time, I think, as well, as now the 5-tick starts to come in. He's spraying, trying to find any sort of tags, but it's too little, too late for Shakos. He's going to go down in the storm, but a valiant effort.
He said, if I'm going to go out, you guys are coming down with me. That is the only focus that I can take from that last exchange. He knew that his time was going to be way too stressed, but right there with you. Definitely a decent attempt to make it back into zone. But that storm tick damage, it really does build faster than you'd expect. As Howley, Eltenzi, Dendipuzo now looking to see if they can squeeze their way into the next edge of zone. They're trying to avoid some of the congestion that's starting to build towards this west side. And crossing the river. Doesn't seem like it's going to pose too much of a threat just yet, but Klopsy lurking, Sky, Scroll, eye drop as well. A little bit based out extension from that Birdio, and Sky just trying to apply whatever tags he can, trying to control the flow of the team surrounding them.
Yeah, they want to have a really good game like they did in game number 1, so that's going to need all the firepower of each and every person in that trio, as it looks as though Marius was able to pick up Pixie and Vanya, as we see Vanya just getting cracked right there. So looking good for that trio, but Scroll there just staying open a little bit too long. Thankfully, they do have the heals to recover, but it's almost that damage trade. It's like, how much are you going to open up, how much are you going to expose in order to actually pick up some damage, as their Floki does go down as well. So not the greatest situation for that trio, as we saw them looking good earlier on. It's all crumbled a little bit here, as Misha, Yasin, and Neuer also having a bit of a trouble right now, as Neuer does fall down. Not an ideal situation at all, because now only 289 above, but Misha can hit a massive shot right there. Can he find the final elimination? I think he can. They're doing very well.
The fact that Yasin's even able to just immediately go for the follow-up, but Vasquez might be able to actually get the double revive. Atmo brought back into the mix, so could have been a huge moment. Instead, that revive gonna just extend a little bit more time there. It's just the way that Vasquez's team, though, they immediately hurtled themselves towards that front side of zone, just trying to get ahead of where the rest of the pack is at, but still, it is an uphill battle, almost quite literally. As Artskill, like Squeeze, Podesai, keeping tabs. Got a little bit of elevation to work with as is, but they want to make sure that they're the ones actually controlling the high ground.
See a little bit of some excellent knocks, some damage. It's going to be absolutely crucial for this team. You can see their sort of storm surge there just flying up. Very important at all stages of the game just to keep progressing. And look at this, though. I mean, Marius, of course, with those eliminations earlier. That mythic pump is going to be absolutely important to his, seem vital to his gameplay. You get to see him popping off in the end game, I'm sure. Eltensi, Dendipuzo, and Howley also on that sort of low ground section of the map. And this is really where these gold splashes will come into play, just running. So much of this season's end games are just about running to front side, making sure blocking off angles, trying to make their way into the zone, building in full metal to ensure that nobody is going to be spraying them while they have the materials. Why not use them as Podesai? Key art skill, I should say, and X-Squeeze are building up for height. So let's hope that we don't see any further fall damage potentially from some of our height teams today.
Well, for Podesai, it starts with a good connection, just continuing to commit so much hard material towards that high ground. It's going to be very difficult now for the teams that were kind of straggling further behind to even question or break through into that secondary height layer. Artskill also continuing to look back, but we saw most of the materials on Podesai and his Squeeze, but Artskill just wants to apply pressure. The moment you have control of the high ground and such a commanding presence here as well, it's just about getting as much damage off as possible, maybe dropping for a refresh or two, but on the low ground, Tayson, Chicho, they're just gonna carve their way straight through, continuing to try and stay on that front side low, but still making sure to look back. They know that they've got plenty of company surrounding them.
I like now. This. Yeah, Howley, Dendipuzo, mid-ground. I think they were looking for a refresh right there, and they're going to need one sooner rather than later for them. Pixie, Marius, Vanya, the team that needed a reboot, but Don't need too much in terms of damage right now when it comes to Storm Surge. The materials are going to be dwindling, though, so you can see them just being really proactive in terms of how to get those. Pixie doesn't have the kneecapper, so he's going to have to move in a slightly different way. For now, this is a trio that we really expect to be doing very, very well. As Scroll, Eyedrop, and Sky all the way down on the low ground, fragging out like we know they can do, picking up yet another elimination. That's their third of the game. We're really, really confident. I think these guys have to be confident when it comes to this low ground section because we know how well they can play.
Put aside art skill, XW's there, encountering a couple of natural terrain difficulties, but still putting so much pressure onto that low ground. Pixie gonna be reminded that there is a team currently overhead. Marius, though, can he do it again with Vanya right next to him? Scroll, Sky, Eyedrop. It's only a matter of time if these two teams continue to linger on the low ground before they're gonna have to clash head on here. But Marius finding what he can. Howley, Dandy, Puzo gonna be the next ones to fall here. Opmo as well. And Marius, those are the much needed resources that he needed to find. He needs as much Siphon Mats as possible just to continue to put some builds over his head. A little bit of protection screening from the damage that's being applied everywhere else.
Now Cheat Show left us as solo. We saw them looking so good earlier on. Not going to be so good this game, but another consistent game for that trio, so they won't be too disappointed with it. As Eyedrop now and Scroll down to a duo. We saw Sky and Scroll doing it in game number 1. Why not Eyedrop as well? This is such an important situation for them that they can try and find just a few extra placements. They're going to be vying for that victory, of course, but it's Podesite, Art Skill, and XW's that are really the kings of the lobby so far. High ground has not been touched whatsoever. They've been controlling it. They've been spraying. You can see they're even just shooting their shotguns because they've run out of medium bullets. They're just having to apply whatever pressure that they can to try and squeeze the lobby all the way down to low ground.
And they want to play the advantages of height, but running so low on material, running so low on ammunition, Mini, they might have to enter the fray sooner than what they've been hoping for initially. And with Marius Vanya directly underneath them, that could be a huge issue to deal with, not to mention Eyedrop, Scroll. They're still carving their way through as well, but Marius has caught wind. Fresh team directly underneath where they sit, but so low on the material count, just trying to break through some of these pre-existing builds. Eyedrop might have caught notice of the fact that it's Marius and Vanya above him, but Eyedrop, he's going to be the first to fall. Marius immediately pounces Scroll up next on the cutting board here, but Stormy, Riot, Arco, and Koji, they are a fully intact trio, and they have been running it with the elimination count.
Now Art Skill, XW's Podesite dropping on down. Art Skill trying to go for the shots with the kneecapper. Hits a great shot, but does get return fired by Arco. It's now Arco and ahead, all up to them. Can they clutch it up? And they can. A huge 15 elimination victory royale. What a game for that team. They are going to be in the Major 2 finals. And what a performance from the low ground Demons.
They were just able to continue racking up the eliminations, just barreling through that low ground Mini. And it's impressive when you factor in that it's largely just the fact that Height didn't have enough ammo to appropriately spray down onto these lower layers. They needed more ammunition so that they could further suppress. Instead, Stormy, ahead Arco, they just take full advantage of the fact that they were just one of the only trios left standing at this point, and kudos to them because now they've secured their ticket to the Major 2 finals. I'm sure that they've got to be ecstatic about it, but what do Frankie, Levin, and Takata have to say?
I feel like that was a sneaky but very well-earned victory royale. Levin, what did you think?
No, absolutely. You know what? I'll be honest. Seeing Stormy right again, getting himself into a major finals is super impressive. A veteran of the CIS Fortnite scene, and he's picked up 2 young players from that region. And you know, out of Wiffy Wolf picking up the win here with a lot of elims as well. It's not like they've just like snuck on by, right? You know, like they were popping off there towards the end. Fair play.
100%. I mean, I'm impressed. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little surprised and impressed. I thought on the high ground they had it all controlled, all ready to go. But from this season's performance, Stormy and his trio, I mean, I think they made what, 5 final set lobbies as a whole trio combined, but they hadn't won a single game in any of them. And now coming off so strong with not only a victory royale but 15 eliminations alongside that. I mean, Levin, they cleaned up.
No, they played really well. really tough game. I think for them, now it's about, you know, okay, just seeing the final moments there with Art Skill just trying to come in with a kneecapper still just looks ridiculous every single time. But they handled it really well. They didn't get themselves chunked all the way out into the storm, and they pick up the win for it.
It just feels like everyone was kind of like, well, not everyone, obviously, but a few of the players that we saw like dropping into their clutches, and the guys were just like, oh, yeah, you remember me. Remember me, the CIS legend. I was here for you. And we are here for you guys as well. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll be discussing everything that went down in Game 2. Welcome back to FNCS, and before the break, Stormy Rai, Arco and Koji booked their place in the Major 2 Grand Finals. But who did they beat to get there? Well, a number of very strongly performing trios. And first of all, I think, Takata, we've got to talk about Podesai, and I nearly said Akira, but actually they swapped Akira for R-Skill this season and X-Squeeze, because this is a trio that so far have managed to make it to both end games, but falling short slightly, even though they got the high ground for free.
This is a trio that's been in EU for a long time now, experienced veterans, and even throughout this season, they've been making a lot of these finals. 21 finals they've made throughout the season, but as a trio, they made 5. The issue is, Levin, they can't convert these finals into victory royales. They haven't got a single victory royale as a trio in these set lobby finals, and they were so close once again now in groups, but they were unable to finish it off.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like when you get 2 second places in these lobbies, like you're doing good. Like if we look at the leaderboard now, they're sitting there in 4th or 2nd in consistency. They're well on their way to qualifying. But at the same time, Frankie, 2 second places does feel like a bit of a slap in the face. It's a bit, it must sting a little bit knowing that you were so excruciatingly close to like actually just getting yourself out of the lobby, and you didn't twice in a row.
I know what it is, guys. Nikov is doing a watch party right now, and Podesai, being of the gentle mates, Nikov needs to do the full 5 games. And so what's going to happen is Podesai is going to win the 5th Victory Royale. I think that's what's going to happen. Yeah, that's what I'm cooking now.
Yeah.
Let's head over to Denmark, though, boys, because I know there's a lot of Danish fans watching in the audience. Shout out Nicholas and Oliver. I haven't forgotten you boys from Global 2023. Sky, Scroll, and iDrop. Another stellar game for them, Levin.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a bit of a different flavor. The commentators mentioned it, right? There was a point there at the end where it was sort of iDrop and Scroll, I believe, or iDrop and Sky. I can't remember which one of the Danish boys was up with iDrop. But, you know, it was nice to see them as a trio. Not as, you know, high-flying there in terms of as fraggy as they were in that first game, which is a bit ironic, right? When you go from a duo, they had all the confidence in the world. When you're a trio, maybe playing it a bit safer. But another really good, consistent game from these boys to cut.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, in the set lobby finals throughout the season, they made top 10 40% of their games, so they're clearly doing a good job of getting to these late games. Even if they lose one of their teammates, whether it be iDrop, Sky, Scroll, whoever, they're able to do what they need to get a top placement in these matches.
Now, we've got to talk about one man who didn't necessarily put up all the numbers in the first game, but just pulled off one of my favorite plays of the night so far. We're just 2 games in, boys, and we're seeing Marius 1-3-3ing the trio that arguably had the best loadout on the map at that point.
Yeah, well, look, when we, you know, watched the replay package of Marius in after game 1, I did say he got set up a bit. This time, not at all. This is one of the best clips we will see all weekend in Fortnite. 1v3 in this trio here in Kiduo, Cringe, and Volko was just mental. Like, he just shouldn't be doing this. When people are talking about Marius as being one of the best fraggers, one of the best players, this is why.
Oh yeah. I mean, it shows how much of an impact a fragger of his caliber can have. You should have seen our reaction when he hit that 1v3. I jumped out of my chair. I wasn't even sitting down anymore watching him play it out. And I mean, rightfully so. Number 5 on the leaderboard, or, you know, number 3, depending on how you look at it. They're in good range for qualifying.
No,
Jolly,
honestly, like,
yeah.
When you see people, you know, take on 1v3s like that, a lot of the time you see them like isolate the 1v1s, and it's like he got the first one, and then it's like 2 of them in a box, and he's like, yeah, I fancy that. You know, I'll, you know, a little window edit, take you down. It was just ruthless, clean. I want to see more of that today.
Do you think, just quickly, if Marius hadn't come along and spoiled the days of Cringe, Volko, and Kadura, do you think that they could have made it a lot further towards the end game? Because not only did they take the train, they also made it to the black market as well, Takata.
Yeah, I mean, I think it almost, you know, helped out, as you were alluding to. They got the mythic Sentinel Pump Shotgun. I mean, Marius being able to hit 200s, that's a dangerous combination. So it definitely helped in that sense of getting to the end game. But I also saw moments where they were kind of running a bit low on shield. Maybe they used a lot during those engagements, so they weren't able to fully be 100% healthy. But either way, they did what they had to.
Well, why don't we have a look at Tayson as well? I feel like we've got to do Tayson watch, okay? We can't have an FNCS where Tayson is in the lobby, where we're not seeing the audacity, gone on the gumption of this man, Levin.
No, absolutely, man. Look, I'm just, you know, I used to always get accused of being like the original Tayson Glazer on EU, you know, so I'm never going to complain when Tayson's doing well. It's good to see these guys in another end game. Again, like when you just look at this lobby, you look at the quality of these 3 and the way they play, they're going to be consistent in these games. Whether or not they can actually get a win, I think that's really like the biggest sign in terms of if we're trying to extrapolate to maybe the major finals. Like if these guys win a game, that tells me a lot about how they're doing this season.
I have a feeling that in one of the last 3 games, they might as well, they might pick up the Victory Royale. We've got to head, though, right now to Mini, Minor, and to Taco because we're ready with Game 3.
Moment that we've all been waiting for. Basically the halfway point as far as Group 1 is concerned here. Mini, 5 games to work with overall, and a couple of teams that maybe might have caught the audience by surprise to see them book their tickets to that Major 2 finals, but other teams still looking to try and collect on that pathway. It's going to be an exciting moment, but Game 3 ready to go.
Game number 3, the midway point of the day, and this is really where questions start to be asked. What do we do if we're a team that's lower on down? Do we start to play a little bit more aggressive? Do we start to go for some victory royales potentially? Or do we just try and play out as many games as we can as far as possible? Risks are what's going to be mentioned a lot now, I'm sure, in the next few games. What risks do you take? What risk can you afford to take? And what's going to pay off, Taco? I think that's really what's going to be crucial for these teams as we now get to see how things play out for the rest of the day. I think in terms of consistency, it's not been too surprising in terms of the names that we see up the top. A lot of our top teams are doing very well, but in terms of the wins, we've definitely seen some smaller teams, you could say, but definitely by no means smaller in talent.
Ooh, not the start you'd be hoping for, though. Yasin scouting out the fact that Noya has already been picked off, but a big exchange here. Aryan also going to find themselves knocked. Still, one more to connect. Yasin not going to be able to find it, though. Zero mats either. Just double shotgun loadout, and this is a problem here because he's trying to break through. Ivan holding the floors above them, not going to allow this to come to fruition just yet, and sure enough, that's a clean 3 for 3 here. Ivan, Aryan, and Cade switching things up a little bit with that direct contest at Mass Meadows, just trying to make sure that they can close things out as quickly as possible. They don't want to play the passive game any longer.
Yeah, we saw what happened to them when they tried to fight at the bank in the last game, and it just didn't go very well for them, so they just try to get things done a little bit earlier on. But in terms of Lone Wolf Lair, it's all gone. We'll just forget about guns for a bit, I guess. We'll just go for pickaxes. And Kensig, Chucks, and Fire Hunter are the team that will come out on top there. Very different way of going about an off-spawn fight, and it worked out in their favor. But this is, again, a completely different sort of landscape to what we saw last time. We saw a very passive game number 1 at this drop spot in terms of the off-spawn fight. Game number 2 was a little bit quicker. That game couldn't be quicker.
Me personally, Minnie, surely you have to expect some big moments of revenge coming through. Setting up for game 4. All depends, though, as Hopeful Heights still being a little bit settled here, with those armored vans now spawning a little bit earlier on, but it does seem as though the pace, Minnie, is 100% really starting to pick up here. So many of our teams just kind of recognizing the fact that they've got to get into the action faster if they want to set themselves up for that mid and late game, and the action still continuing to spill over here. Rizoi knows he's got the advantage up against Cole, but Prime gonna be able to create just enough of a gap here, so Rizoi instead gonna shift his direction. Prime still trying to scurry outwards, but Ankiroi looking to cut off the angle. Still, no knocks just yet.
No knocks yet, but some significant damage output. Rizoi and Kido, we've seen these guys really getting fraggy all day as Rizoi hits another fantastic shot. 20 other players, but no, it's a little bit of an overextension. You have to imagine there for Ankido, who does fall. Rizoi potentially about to join him. He does, and it's all now up to Khan. Controller man himself, can he clutch up? I think he might just have to disengage here, but look who it is lurking, as we know they do. It's iDrop, Sky, and Scroll. Of all the teams in the lobby that you want barreling down towards your box fight after you finish taking out 2, this has got to be at the bottom of your list in terms of teams.
This is one of the benefits, though, of iDrop, Sky, and Scroll having that shiny shafts uncontested. The moment that they're able to scout out all the shots in the surrounding area, it's an easy third-party pressure in, and Scroll, Sky, iDrop, they've done an excellent job at just cutting off the escape routes currently. Putrix Kolb's only direction as far as getting out at this point is to choose to play along that bank of the waterway, but with iDrop having such a strong overhead view on that hillside, it's going to be difficult for Putrix's team to actually get out.
They were just sort of sat there hoping that they didn't actually notice that they were still in there. As we get to see it now from the reverse angle, it was that initial elimination onto Ankido that was really the catalyst for this fight. As they managed to close out that engagement and survive the wrath of iDrop, Sky, and Scroll as well. So big major W's for that team of Spawn, but not a major W for a team that's going up against Cringe, Kiduo, and Volko. We know all about how they can fight, how they've been able to do. They haven't quite necessarily shown it, particularly in that last game, getting 1v3 by Marius, but I think we'll let him off because it is Marius. And I like the way they've sort of just completely overtaken this entire area here. They've said, right, we are taking control of Lone Wolf Lair. And they're going to try and scrap loot here, try and find some extra maybe mobility items or any other heals.
Yeah, but Oogway fully aware of the fact that they've still got this team overhead. Whether or not they know that it's Cringe's trio is irrelevant. This fights continue to just take place, and it's these outskirts we knew would be kind of the turf that Putrix would have to play through. Big elimination, though, onto Khan. Still having to deal with Rezoy entirely, though, and Putrix just a little bit stuffed between the edge of this cliff and another team, but Enkidoy, Rezoy, they are not healthy, and Enkidoy, he's going to find himself getting knocked, eliminated. Now exclusively down to Rezoy, and he's just trying to stay as quiet as ever, hoping that this other team, Sky Scroll Eye Drop, can be his indirect saviors, but they might also be the reason why he goes down entirely.
Yeah, a bit of a deja vu moment here. We just saw this fight happening and it went the exact same way. Now Eye Drop, Sky, and Scroll do seem like they are going to be closing in, being a little bit more aggressive. Scroll hops in towards Cole's area, but it does look as though he's been tagged from behind. Really great tag to sort of stop and slow down the attack from Sky, Scroll, and Eye Drop. You fancy them in this 3v2, but the other team are putting up a good fight. We saw them doing incredibly well. Full box there from Sky. Connects with the shot as well. Doesn't get the second, but his good mate there. Eye Drop is there to clutch up. Really nicely played from those guys. Not without a little bit of a wobble. What I find most funny about that is, I think it was Rezoy, wasn't it? Is still alive to tell the tale. So that trio might have to get rebooted yet again. And yet the team that they were fighting originally, Putrix, has now gone down.
The other issue, too, though, is that almost have to expect Scroll, Sky, Eye Drop, they're going to opt to stick around. If a reboot's going to come into play, they want to be within earshot of it. But Sky, Eye Drop, and Scroll have just been fragging out throughout the first couple of lobbies here today. And it doesn't seem as though they have any intention of slowing down. They're not going to be the only ones either, kind of just try to stake their claim off of the back of eliminations. They were leading the leaderboard as well. They had, I believe, 17 eliminations heading into this third lobby. So they're definitely setting themselves up nicely as far as qualifying through consistency if all else fails, but certainly a team that you would almost anticipate getting a victory royale in this caliber of lobby.
Yeah, I mean, they're sort of preparing for any outcome, whether they get a victory royale or not. It doesn't really matter too much for them. They're setting themselves up perfectly for however this day is going to go, but for Podesai, XWeeze, Artskill, this is a team that are playing incredibly well so far. I mean, what, 2 back-to-back seconds? Takada talked about it on the desk, how they haven't quite been able to convert those into victory royale. 0 in the set lobbies that they have been a part of so far this season. But, I mean, just keep getting those seconds, keep getting those consistent placements, and they'll be just fine.
I like Frankie's Gentlemate's content farm direction, Podesai. He's just putting on a show for the people. Yeah, that is the true French camaraderie spirit. He's trying to make sure that Nikov gets an excellent showing of what exactly the Aura is going to be capable of. The player leading inside of the first group, but eyes back on Eye Drop, Sky, and Scroll as they continue to work their way up to a little bit of elevation here. With 3 eliminations, Mini, you have to expect that they can shift their focus now, less about the surge damage and more so on just setting up for the late game.
Yeah, they're going to need that experience, and I know Eye Drop has got all of that experience. Eye Drop's 20 now, which is basically, you know, a pensioner in terms of Fortnite competitive. I saw his post on Twitter, on X the other day, and he said he made his first earnings 6 years ago, which is absolutely incredible. What I find even more funny about that is 6 years ago, Sky and Scroll were 9 years old. So just shows how consistent Eye Drop has been at that entire time, because of course Sky and Scroll now 15 years old. They've just been able to come through and perform at that level. Eye Drop's been doing it for so long now, and it's nice to see some of the new blood coming in and really showing what they can do as well.
Hard not to be excited for what might lay in store for that team should they find themselves qualifying yet again for the Major 2 finals. Pixie, Marius, and Vanya, though, continuing to kind of hover around this outskirts territory, Mini, and it looks as if they want to just go for some dead side rotations, but might even be able to run into a couple of teams that were hoping to just stick around, maybe go for some later reboots. We have seen a lot of teams fall early on in this lobby.
Yeah, we definitely have. Marius just showing what he does there with that quick stat, just being able to do so much damage whilst not taking much damage himself, and I think that's going to be so vital And it is so vital in a game like Fortnite where you have that, the damage ratio being so vital with the conservation of heals and being able to provide that damage output for your team. He's almost a dream teammate, a dream fragger in that regard as well, particularly when he's on the form that he is. And I remember it was last chapter, it was around this stage of the chapter that he was really starting to pop off. It was sort of season 2, and everyone on TikTok was just saying this guy is the next great thing. And as Levin sort of correctly mentioned, didn't quite necessarily have that highs or fit in maybe to the expectations that a lot of people had, but now that he's started to have a little bit more confidence, potentially starting to come into his own and playing with that freedom that we know he can play light, because when you do have all those eyes on you, it can be a little bit difficult just to sort of maintain that level of performance, because there's always that thought in the back of your mind of like, oh, there's so many more people watching me now. But he's really stepping up to the plate.
And another team that we want to see continue to try to step up here today, but it might be difficult. Snazy and Icy, they're operating as a duo currently, trying to make their way back towards a reboot ban. Surely want to bring Floki back into the action, but this is a pretty tough position to be in here, Mini, because having to circle back around, you know that there's going to be some teams that were trying to play through that dead side position or coming in later, and Snazy scouting out Atmo directly underneath. He's going to try to push them back, but these storm exchanges take entirely too long sometimes, and that's something that has kind of plagued Kana and Kido and Rizoi all day today.
Yeah, definitely. We're seeing yet another fight, including these guys. This is going to be the third time we've seen them fight. Let's see if they can have a little bit more success, get on the front foot nice and early, which we haven't seen from them so far. They haven't been able to get that initial shot, that initial knock onto the opponents, which is what they do now. There goes Etsy down to Khan. Telio there does actually manage to find a trade, so Telio doing a fantastic job. And Kido now left a solo clutch as Khan and Rizoi do go down. Now comes down to that 1v1 situation, and Kido needs to clutch up. We saw him doing it earlier on, making sure to make up for that mistake, of course, that he made. Gets the piece, gets the edit, gets the shot, but it's a trade, and both players now have to reconsider. Storm keeps ticking away at their damage, but Tilio right there does have the Chug Jug, so you have to fancy him in this situation. Zankido gets the finish, so he might get the Siphon for that, which he does. Tilio tries to get his way up, trying to find any sort of shot, but now it's completely flipped as Zankido has the health advantage. Not so long anymore. Down to that 50 HP as this fight just keeps dragging on, Take.
Everything has already been expended, though. At this point, this is a net negative for both of these solos involved. Khan, Rizoi, having already been eliminated. They were knocked, but Nkude has just not been able to find that closing shot. Continues to get pushed back. And Telio reminding Ankidoi this is going to be a total freebie, but it doesn't even matter because the third party has come into play. It's just entirely too long for those two teams to get tangled up with each other. And it's no surprise that Uguay's trio would choose to pounce, but not necessarily a whole lot left after the fact to pick up. More so just a little bit of surge damage to work with.
Yeah, really frustrating for that trio who have just been sort of fighting a lot throughout that game. As we see Uguay, not Chapix, not to be confused with Chapix, it's Blazer, Lecky and Slowkey, or Slowly. So if anyone is confused, don't worry. It is not Chapix, but a really nice, easy elimination for those guys to roll on through and grab. I think those sort of eliminations are so crucial if you can just find them, and the better teams will be able to know when to push on in, when to be a little bit more aggressive in those situations. I mean, we spoke about it earlier. Look at that quick stat. Chicho has a damage ratio of 2.34, which is the best in the lobby. It's just what he does. He's such a good and valuable asset when it comes to getting Storm Surge damage, because we spoke about it earlier, how important it is to not only do the damage, but also take less so that you're using less heals. And you can see that's why he's still got that full Chug Jug, 6 big pots. They've got everything they could possibly need, and he's a key element for their success.
They're also just continuing to cut a path as well that's just cutting off Uguay's team. They're not really allowing them to get an entrance towards that next edge of zone. It seems as though Tayson and Chicho, they've got full intentions of finding a pair of eliminations, if not all 3, along the way for their next rotate. Frenet, Giras, and Dinas, though, just holding things down from the skies above. They're going to have to get a move on soon, but they're definitely having the full intention of just getting as much damage as possible. Frennick with some really nice beams here, Mini. It's almost sure to put a stop to any of those teams that were looking to try and rotate in.
Yeah, and these are the situations now for teams where they have to really start to think, where are we sort of positioned in this sort of landscape of the lobby? Are we a team that does need to be a little more aggressive, or are we a team that can sort of rely on these surge bases? Dina, Skiras, and Franek, they are a team that can rely on these surge bases. They're a team that can rely on being a little bit less aggressive. 7th place overall, of course, 5th on consistency so far. So looking pretty good. They want to keep up that consistency, and that's why they're sort of lacking a little bit in those eliminations. But they won't mind at all. They just want to make it to the end game, keep up that consistency. Kiduo, Cringe, and Volko, a team that I want to see more from. I want to see more from these guys. I think we spoke about it earlier on in the day. I know Zakata was mentioning how strong their loot is when it comes out of that train, and yet to really see it put to good use. But you never know what can happen when it comes to players like Kiduo.
Yeah, some of these loadouts, though, looking a little bit more forged from desperation than anything else. Sharif just trying to see if he can actually break through the floors here, create an opening for maybe Finn or Maldives to find a nice connection shot in. Tag team combination here. That's going to be one knock, but Sharif nearly goes down and returned. New instead going to be the next one to fall. Goodbye to Allen and New here, but Finn knows he's not out of it just yet. Another team entirely trying to apply some good pressure here, but at least enough loot left over, put this team in a much better position than what they started with from when we first peeked into what was going on.
Yeah, really, really impressive stuff right there. You can just see them all get together as quickly as they did. You can see that first knock. You can see a little bit of potential for problems, but they're all just playing so close to one another, hip to hip. And when you play like that against a trio that do have a player down, it becomes so difficult to contend against. As now Brownie, unfortunately for him, he is down to a solo. So for Cringe, Volko, and Kiduo, they're going to be able to roll on through and take him out. Really nicely done from them. And they do get the zone pole back as well. So that's going to be a really nice position for them to just sort of sit there. They're going to have so many extra materials now from those eliminations. You can see all of the loot here. And what they can just do, they can just build a massive base. They can go up onto that hill and come on back down to replenish their materials. So going to be a perfect position for an elimination for them.
Yeah, and for a lot of our teams here today, height hasn't necessarily been the full guarantee as far as converting into a victory royale. We've definitely seen a handful of our height teams that were looking to try and control the skies, encounter their fair slew of issues, but Shakos, Plazi, Firos, they might be able to get ahead, one step ahead, taking the zip line, scaling that face of the mountainside. They could catch some other teams off guard pretty easily.
Already can. It's going to be a difficult rotate for them, though, as it's going to be for Floki, Ice, and Snazy. They do have the whites and, of course, the gold splashes to increase that running speed. But in terms of loot, in terms of materials, it's looking a little bit dire. Of course, when the zone does start to close, and does close entirely, I should say, it will go to a 5-tick as well. So all of these players just do have to make their way in. That has to be the main priority now. It's just next door to them. It's just all chaos breaking loose right now as Podesai goes down. X-Squeeze and Artskill have to try and clutch up, as he does with picking up Nemo. This is a trio that have been so consistent today, Taco. Is it going to come crumbling down? But look at the zone again. They've managed to get a pole back. So this could be a position for them where they just sort of sit and tank the storm. That 5-tick is going to be really dangerous for them. But they should hopefully have a little bit more success there.
Oof. Just caught a glimpse of what was going on, though, with iDrop, Sky and Scrolls team, and again, not in a position to where they're able to actually maneuver this late game as a full trio. They've had moderate success in the duo pairings for sure, Mini, but obviously teams would prefer to remain fully intact here. Sweet, Artskill, Podesai, seems like they were just caught a little bit off guard with the way the lobby collapsed around them. Podesai, I think maybe have been trying to get some attempts towards fishing. This team was a little bit squeezed as far as their resources are concerned, and Berg just continuing to try and apply pressure. They're willing to tank up a little bit of the storm. They know the zone's pulling right back over them, but still, teams up above in these elevated positions just putting enough pressure to threaten others like Scroll, like iDrop. And Scroll's definitely got the right intent. He wants to see if he can work his way up into that secondary height, but there's just two separate layers that he has to actually cut through, and it might be better to just sit still for the time being.
Yeah, especially since we got a little glimpse of them earlier, of course, now just down to a duo. So what they do here is going to be so important. As we talked about earlier, they've really put themselves in a fantastic position, but, you know, teams can come on barreling up to the top of the leaderboard if they do go down here. So they want to try and get as much placement out of this game as possible. It seems like a bit of a running theme with this team where one of them goes down a little bit later on into the game and then the other two have to sort of try and clutch up. It's a tall order now for the remaining two, but they can still make it happen as the trio that seem to be inseparable when it comes to these games. It's Chicho, Tayson, and Haris, who are always seemingly together at this stage of the game. As this X-Squeeze and Artskill, we saw how they're just sort of tanking Storm to enable them to stay inside of the next zone, picking up eliminations as they do as well, picking up refreshes as well, and that's going to really boost up their materials, which is really what they need. And look at that for a refresh. Absolutely huge for X-Squeeze, and that's going to help them survive so much longer in this game. And I think they pulled another zone, so they'll be very much thanking the zone pulls right now, and they're going to be, hopefully for them, having a little bit more consistency like we've seen from them so far.
A little bit of plot armor coming into play here for the Frenchies, but from the last scenes that we got out of Chicho and Tayson, they looked to be incredibly healthy. And it's more so the fact that they're a fully intact trio that's hard not to be excited. One thing that I think a lot of people kind of harp on them for is not being enough of the risk takers, but if they could just confirm some late game refreshes, which we have been seeing them find, but in duo scenarios, fully intact trio, they have so much more room to work with. Cringe, Kiruo, just try and make their way through on the low ground though. Fnatic gonna cut that off for the time being, and Cringe, he's just too low. He's got to play around these builds. Kiruo knows it, but Fnatic not willing to key outright. Wants to maintain as much of this elevated position as possible, but trailing behind the rest of the lobby now, it's gonna allow Cringe a big opportunity to get those shields back up and in his favor.
iDrop though, HP looking low. Scroll, of course, by his side. They're going to need both players' abilities now in order to try and pick up some sort of a refresh, some sort of a heal opportunity here for iDrop. Maybe just a Siphon, just a lurking player that's maybe late to rotating. There's still a long way to go, particularly for the players that were sort of on that water. They're going to have to traverse over that. Scroll working with what he has, trying to stick together, and this is the most important thing at this point in the game. But we saw Franek, we saw Giras and Dinas. These guys actually had a very, very long rotate to make, but they've made it successfully. Not only that, they've actually been able to build back up onto height. So really nicely played from this team, and it just shows how they're able to play so much calmer than the rest of the lobby because they are in that solid position at the top of the leaderboard. They've set themselves up well. They've got excellent surge, and they can look down at the rest of the lobby right now and hopefully play height successfully.
This is exactly why they didn't choose to pursue Cringe, even though they knew he was incredibly low for a moment here. Great cutoff as well. Not going to allow Sharif or Maldives to have the opportunity to actually try and encroach on their current position. But the problem now stands. Ammunition running a little bit thin here for Dinas. iDrop, he's just got no HP. That's what it seems like. He's going to have to find a miracle tag to work with. He can't even afford another tick, but it's going to be too little too late. Can't actually break through the build. Nowhere left to run. Scroll, on the other hand, playing off another player's Menace grenade. Going to see if he can get a tag off onto Gavix, but no connection. Not the big ones that he needs to get the outright knock. Instead, he's just going to be isolated, focused out, eliminated. Atris, Tayson, Chicho now spraying the back of zone. All these stragglers that are being forced to encounter this layer that they've been sitting upon, and Atris wasting absolutely no time trying to collect as many tags as possible. They want another elimination. They need the Siphon materials.
Another big team that's in this endgame as well as a full trio. It's Marius, Banya, and Pixie looking very, very strong. We've seen them going down at this stage of the game previously. They're going to need a really solid game here to keep boosting their way up in these standings. They're already looking good as Ivan and Cade down to just Ian and Ivan, and now Ivan's got to be left as a solo. This is not ideal for him at all, and he goes back to the lobby, but a solid game from that team. It's the team on height, though, that is stealing the show at the moment, just pressuring everyone down below as the zone continues to pull up this high elevation of a hill. There's not much anyone else can do as Franek connects with so many shots, takes down Marius as well, and it's the team on height that are just pressing everyone down, Taco.
Titans of the lobby, though, having been shut down. Dina is going to be a victim here. He tries to drop her some of the materials, and Atris not going to allow it to go for free. Atris now encountering some difficulties of his own. He's getting sprayed from above, but the material count is just too heavily in his favor. He is tarping as much space as possible. Tayson, Chicho right there to back him up if need be. There's only 2 players standing in the way of them in this victory royale, it seems like, because Vanya not going to be a part of the conversation any longer. He's brought down, and as a solo, didn't have much hope to begin with. Tayson, Chicho, Atris, this could be their moment to strike. This is what they've been waiting for. Darky going to be the next to fall, and Tayson, he's right there. He can taste it. The victory royale is in his grasp. All he needs is these final 2 shots, but Frantic, they're not letting it happen.
Not letting it happen as the full trio, Tayson, Chicho, and Hatris, they're going up onto height, not having the materials to do so, but Chicho hits a massive shot as he rotates up towards the high ground. Hatris gets the knot onto Giras. It's all down to 1, as now finally they've picked up their victory royale. It's Chicho, Hatris, and Tayson. It wouldn't be a grand finals without them, and they've made it to the Major 2 finals.
It's almost like they heard Levin on the desk asking for, can we see this team get a win? A win is going to determine a lot of how people tend to view this trio as a whole. And hey, at least for right now, Atris really got the ball rolling as far as finding some of those early eliminations while breaking through on that front side. But the way that they managed to consistently connect with those refreshes, that was the ultimate difference maker here, Mini. And they did it in a pretty clean performance as well.
Yeah, it was inevitable. I think they were putting themselves in that position so often. The ability was always there with this trio. We talked about it last season, how maybe with Trulex they were lacking in that sort of victory royale aspect of their gameplay. They weren't able to close out many victory royales. Now with the addition of Hatris, a little bit more fragging ability, this is what this trio can do, and maybe this is a sign of what to expect more from when it comes to the Major 2 finals. But what's guaranteed right now is that they will be there.
Yeah, and it couldn't have come at a better moment for them as well. They'll get to sit back, watch how the rest of these lobbies pan out. But hey, we've got the desk to break down everything that just took place.
I mean, guys, Tayson was in the lobby. It's inevitable that he's going to guarantee his spot in the Major 2 final, be that from consistency or a victory royale, but he did it particularly in style this time, Takata.
Yeah, I'm glad it was through a victory royale, because based on their drop spot, just how this trio performs, consistency was the more kind of, we knew they were going to do good. We knew they were going to make it to every late game, but able to actually secure that victory royale is what I was looking for. It's what you were looking for, Levin, and I'm happy to see that they got it so early on.
This is what they do. I love that game. I love that game for so many different reasons. When you look at how it plays out with the zone, pulling across the mountain, it was a tough game. You saw so many players went down, and that's the kind of game where you're looking at all the top teams in that lobby and you're going, now this is where you separate yourself from the rest. This is where you show. You had Franek and Giras and them up on height, and this is, the type of game where they should just win, realistically, right? The zone is playing so much in their favor, and for Hatris, Tayson, Chicho to still come through and do it, unbelievable. On top of that, right, we highlighted the fragging power, right, of Chicho and Aris, and how this is going to be, the dynamic duo that helps his team rise to success. Tayson was leading on the limbs. He had 6. This is what he does. He doesn't just lead. He doesn't just IGL. He can frag as well, and that's what I love about these 3 players. I'm excited. I said if they were able to win a game, it would tell me a lot more about, where we should sort of look at them when it comes to the Major 1 finals, and they instantly win and done it there. So really excited about that.
The whole complete package, right?
Sorry.
I mean, yeah, when they get those difficult situations handed to them, they overcome it. Not only are they constantly getting to the late game, minimizing those risks because they're able to play so consistent, but when you need to take those risks, when you need to capitalize on a situation like that where they didn't have the advantage on height, they were still able to clean it up and get the victory royale. I mean, Levin alluded to it, and it's what you love to see from a trio of this caliber.
Yeah, I mean, Levin, given that this is a slightly adjusted trio from the one that we saw in Major number 1, do you think that this is a trio that's already impressing you more? Actually, I shouldn't say that because we've only seen them play 3 games, but do you think the potential of this trio is one that can win a Major?
We're quick to make judgments like that here, aren't we?
I know,
I think
I'm
with how the
sorry.
landscape of this season has played out, it's not out of the realms of possibility. I need to see much more, right? I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I need to see much more, but the landscape of EU right now means that the opening is there for teams to come through and really be big threats.
Well, we'll be talking about those threats after the break, so do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Step to the throne with confidence. Yellow bunch of clothes with an origin. Gave it a crowd, won't ever back down. Take me to the city, we bravely down. Been on the ground for the loot and the gold. We been locked in with before you was on. Me and my squad stay cold so hard. Steady take a loop, put it up like a god. One pump, getting out. Two-tone wrist watch. Full set in this thing because we can never stop. Earn this from the grit and the grind every day.
Welcome back to FNCS. We've had 3 games so far of Group 1, 2 more to go. So let's talk about game number 3. Takata, our runners-up, Frenek, Dinas and Jiras, they were on the high ground. They got chopped down in the end by Tayson's trio. Tayson chopping his way to the major finals yet again. Is this a trio you're expecting to really challenge in the endgame?
Yeah, I mean, it's a trio that I was expecting to get a victory royale. I mean, throughout the season, they played 7 set lobby finals together. They won 4 of them. I mean, they are one of the trios that has done an amazing job of securing these victory royales, but then they get put up against the Tayson, Chicho, Haris, and they were just able to outpower them. But I mean, they've still proven that they're in that range of securing a victory royale one of these games.
Yeah, it's tough because, you know, when you're up on high like that on that type of zone where it's like a mountain zone, like getting the limbs as the height team is always going to be tough. It's been that way for many, many chapters. And so I'm guessing they just sort of ran out of steam there towards the end. They couldn't sort of like put themselves in a position to play out that final sort of 3v3 in the way they wanted. I believe actually one of them went down even before that in the back of the zone as well. It might have been Frenek or Dinner. So not the cleanest, but like you mentioned, Takata, this is a team that has won a lot of games in set lobby finals this season, especially compared to the rest of this lobby. So wouldn't be surprised to see them in that position again. To be honest, when I saw them up on height, I was like, oh, okay, here it is. Because
yeah.
It's funny because like this is a team that in a sneaky way, they've won a lot of set lobby finals, right? You know, like if I ask a lot of people, hey, name one of the games they won this season, like a lot of people probably wouldn't be able to tell me, right? Because it's like they have just sort of snuck through in that sense. But yeah, it was good to see them sort of get themselves in this lobby now.
I want to draw your attention to fourth place on the standings, guys. Artskill, Podesai, and X-Squeeze. I mean, it was basically a duo for all of the end game because Podesai went down in the mid game. Only 9 eliminations for this trio. They are top of the standings of the teams that are going to be playing going into the next game. I'm just wondering, do we want to see even more? I know we're talking about this last desk as well, 11. I'm just curious what you think.
Oh, you're back on the hate train for Podesai, Frankie?
I'm just farming. I'm farming the French.
D1 hater. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know what the agenda here is from Frankie. No, in all seriousness, of course, I know Frankie would never hate her. She loves the French more than anyone here, I think, to be honest. But I think with these guys, I'm not too worried, if I'm being honest, right? Like, I feel like any of the teams that are currently like in those, top consistency places, we've seen them all throughout the day consistently make it to end games. That's all, that's what they want to do. That's what they've been doing well. It's more so some of the teams maybe a bit lower down that you start to worry about as we get into 4 and 5, where you're like, if you've not got some points on the boards now, you're just gonna have to win a game. Those are the teams I'm really worried about.
100%. I mean, they kind of remind me of how Tayson was playing. Podesai, Artskill, X-Squeeze got second, 7th, but I mean, there's big names in this lobby. Vanya, Pixie, Marius are still also kind of on that consistency range. They're making it to these late games. They've made top 10 every single match, have been able to get a good amount of eliminations, but they just haven't converted that victory royale yet, Levin.
Yeah, this is a team that I felt most confident about getting a win here at some point today, and I'm not ruling that out just yet, right? We still got 2 more games. I hope they do it. But, ultimately, like you said, they've been really impressive. Individual performances from Marius have been good in some of the games. Pixie as well has had some crucial moments, some big shots. So all in all, I feel like, it's sort of the same thing I said about the team before, right? It's just like they're doing sort of what you expect them to do. You do expect these guys more so than anyone else, though, to eventually pick up a win in one of these final 2 games.
Well, we are ready for game number 4, so let's head back to Mini Miner and the best taco.
Thank you so much, Frankie. That's right. Game number 4 is upon us. I mean, I feel like it's gone absolutely incredibly quick with how fast these games are coming. And I'm sure it has been for a lot of these players as well, Taco. Some of the players that are a little bit further down, they're going to need a victory royale now, realistically, more than ever. So it's going to get exciting. It's going to get ecstatic. And I'm sure there's going to be some exciting moments in this final game, or this penultimate game.
I'm just anticipating for everything to kind of just break out like Wild Wild West style, because teams that are outside of that top 5 in the consistency metrics, they know that it's probably unrealistic to be able to make up enough points. Even if you have a strong game 4, even if you have a strong game 5, they might just be trailing a little bit too far behind. So Victory Royale is where it's at next, and we'll see who collects it here in match 4.
That's right, game number 4. This is really where things start to get interesting. Where are people going to land? Of course, now we have an uncontested Crime City. Who's it going to be? Sometimes you get to see teams that don't end up landing there. Nobody ends up going there because they expect everyone else to be landing there. So keeping a close eye here on this map to see what goes down there. Of course, Tayson, Chicho, and Harissa's drop. As you see, quite a few arrows heading towards that way, but you never know what's going to happen here, Taco.
Yeah, and it's hard to want to stake your bets as well into such a popular POI like Crime City, because, again, if other teams look to challenge you there, Mini, you could encounter a whole slew of difficulties, and having to bank everything on that Game 5 performance might just not seem as worthwhile as just taking your chances here in Game 4. This Finn, sure, if this is absolute tragedy strikes at the Kappa Kappa factory, New and Jonah, as well as Godoy, they are just making sure that there are no survivors currently. Maldives hoping that he can manage to remain out of view long enough. Team getting a nice tag, but it's so far away that New knows there's no real threat necessarily. They just want to find this lone player in Maldives. They want to confirm the final elimination so they can be comfortable working their way through Kappa Kappa Factory without getting caught off guard from someone sitting around corner. All depends on whether or not Maldives is going to be able to connect this shot, but New, he's hesitant. He's looking, he's checking corners as adamantly as he can, but didn't manage to peep what was underneath the staircase.
It's the joys of watching it. We get to see exactly where Moldis is, but they do not, of course. And it seems like this trio just have been able to adapt to landing at Kappa Factory a little bit quicker than Maldis' team. And of course, for those that have just joined us, Kappa Factory was the location of Hati, Dexy, and Artis, who did win game number 1. So sort of up for grabs for the rest of the players. And these are the 2 teams that have been sort of making it their temporary home, you'd have to imagine. But Maldis is doing a fantastic job of playing hide and seek right now, as now this fight up here at Lone Wolf Lair. This is a fight that went incredibly quickly last game. This time it's going back to what we saw in the first game, a little bit slower, Taco, a little bit more controlled.
Yeah, Monet saw them kind of just skirting around the top end of these buildings here at Lone Wolf Lair. Chuck just tossing out some thermite, trying to cause a little bit of a disruptance. It can be harder to actually gauge those audio cues, but Firebro, Sadie, they're also just kind of waiting to see whether or not they're going to actually encounter each other head on. Monet breaking through the floor now, but the first one to fall is actually going to be Sadie. So Firebro's team definitely pretty happy to know that they are able to strike first here at Lone Wolf Lair, but they've got to get a move on, because there are teams in the distance that could definitely look to try and third party, and sure enough, Kenti nearly losing all of their shield in the process. That's going to make this engagement just drag out a little bit longer here at Lone Wolf.
Yeah, and it's definitely Kentic's team's drop spot. I think they own it as far as how today has gone. Looking like they're completely dominant off spawn in this particular area. And Kido, player that we saw fighting towards that far west side of the map, is inside of a vault right now, just getting a lovely shot there onto Yasin here in Crime City. I think this is one of our teams that must have landed here as well, so it's all starting to get a little bit crazy here inside of the vault area, as we expect. But for this trio, we have seen some ups and downs when it comes to fighting. We haven't seen what we know we can expect from this trio. We haven't seen the togetherness, the ability to take players out as a trio. We've seen a lot of disjointedness and disjointed fighting between all of them. And Kido hits a fantastic 165 shot to take out Misha right there. Perfect elimination for that trio. And they need it. This is a team that do, of course, need this this particular fight to go well for them. 25th on the leaderboard going into this game, so this is a team that we spoke about at the beginning. They need a win, and they're throwing everything that they know to try and win this game, landing at Crime City here.
And the other thing I kind of want to draw attention towards here, though, Minnie, is that for some of these teams, you know, they've had, you know, whether they've had a whole lot of success or no success at the initial off-spawn, teams like Floki, Snazy, they are constantly being caught up in these early fights. Do you think that it's worth continuing to, you know, pressure that early engagement? I mean, we're in game 4 now, right? So a lot of these teams kind of in for a penny, in for a pound. They don't really have any other choice, but would it have been worthwhile to switch up this strategy earlier on?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, right? You could say, you know, you want to try and go for these fights a little bit more earlier on. You want to try and maybe play a little bit less aggressive. I know Floki, Snazy, and Ice, of course, is a team that we saw do very well in that first game. Of course, had a bit of a troublesome situation there in the end, but I think they're a team that have played a little bit more passively so far today, and we can see them sort of rotating there towards pump power. They've tried to flip that switch, so I think it's just all about how confident you are in your abilities and what your team are capable of. For a team that is more capable of sort of getting in close and fighting, just like iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, you can play to those strengths, but it's not a one-size-fits-all, of course.
And the problem here, though, for Enkido and Rizoi, they've recognized, sure, we might have gotten the initial advantage, but it's a whole fresh trio trying to break into the black market. And Khan, he's been isolated, separated from the rest of his team. Scroll, iDrop, just closing in. Rizoi, fortunately, going to be able to lap back around, but the issue now extends. They're not going to be able to make use of that black market like they'd initially been intending. Instead, it seems as though they're going to have to forfeit it entirely to iDrop, Sky, and Scroll unless they're able to flip the script with a nice knocker and elimination or more.
Yeah, nicely played there from iDrop, Sky, and Scroll. They understand the landscape of the lobby. Fortunately for the Lone Wolf Lair fight, we've been seeing it going down. It's extended a little bit here as Waze looks as though he's on his last legs. Monet there, just outside of the drop spot. It's just not been the day to remember for this team in terms of their off-spawn engagements. They've tried to make it quick. They've tried to make it slow, and it just... I'm just not seeing that's confidence, if you like, from that team. It's now Kentic, Firebro, and Chucky. They're just going to have to rotate on through, try and take out one of the players here, because, of course, Monet is just trying to escape as much as he can. There's only so much you can do at this point. And even just disengaging is not really going to be enough for Monet. They need to try and get as much damage as they can, maybe pick up a reboot. But for Chuck, Kentic, and Firebro, they're not going to let it happen. Another knock. Another firm stamp on their mark at this drop spot. But really nicely played from them.
Waze is just trying to, you know, remain as concealed as possible, but those pulse scanners going to make quick work of those hidden positions, and that's definitely a tough break, though, for a team like Monet. And again, Minnie, if you haven't had the off-spawn success that you might have been intending for with your team in your group stage, how much of that do you think is actually going to play in to that last chance qualifier? Because this could be some valid experience as far as, like, you know, the off-spawn contention is concerned, but
yeah,
for some of these teams, I mean, you get even less lobbies to work with when it comes to the last chance.
Yeah, it's tough. It's difficult because now this is where they start to have to ask questions. Is it the drop spot? Is it the team? Do we need to try and change things up? Is it a strategy situation? Maybe bring in a coach to help out? It is tough for teams when you do have such a disappointing group stage performance, particularly off spawn. You don't even get to play end games, really. And it just becomes so difficult to know where to go next. I think for most teams, the best option is maybe to stick to what you know best. The landscape of the lobby in the LCQ might be a little bit different, if they, of course, do make it into that lobby. So, you know, you just have to keep trying new things, and if it all fails, you just have to stick to what you know, I think, at that point.
Couldn't agree more with you. As now taking some peeks into the game plan here from Collapsy, Zany, and Burke, but Collapsy honestly getting clapped from a range. This is not the exchange that he'd been hoping for. More than enough shield, though, to make up for what was lost. It's more so just the fact that they're not getting the damage that they were hoping for, so they're going to have to look for those surge tags elsewhere. Cringe, Volko, and Kiruo, though, closing in on these outskirt positions. Claystash and Polish, they've got to be wary. But Nemo, zero concern, immediately punished from the skies, forced to now base up, and Flame not even going to get a chance to get closer to his teammate. They were on the aggression, trying to chase out a solo from earlier, but they're not going to be able to pinpoint Polish just yet. In fact, it might be Cringe's team now benefiting from what Claystash's trio had started.
Yeah, they're just sort of rolling on through, but what I like is they're not just trying to go all out, guns blazing immediately. They need to using that sort of experience that they have to ensure that they're not just going to jump in and have one of them fall. This is a really key situation for them. I think they were 12th going into this game. Of course, sort of 9th when it comes to taking away the first 3 on the leaderboard. So they're still a little bit away from that top 5 for consistency. This is a team that do have what it takes. They have the potential, they have the power, the experience, and of course the drop spot, the loot. And it's slightly surprising they haven't quite been as good as maybe some were expecting, but that's the beauty of this sort of format, is anything can change in an instant. All you need is Kiruo to hit a few big one pumps, frag out in endgame, and things can take a turn for the better as Nemo tries to bait that Chug Jug. Doesn't quite find the connection though, and this is where this fight has started to happen. Unfortunately though for Nemo's team, one of them is of course further away. I think it was Clay, wasn't it, that was a little bit further away. So if Kiruo's team can take advantage, it's going to be a great opportunity. It wasn't Clay, it was the other players. So it looks as though they've been able to do that. Nemo has to try and clutch up, but it's going to be really tough. I think the other player is just going to run away now, and I think that's all he can do.
Yeah, not really any options left over there for Flame. Even making his way towards those reboot cards could prove to be difficult, could prove to be his own demise here. Cringe, Kiruo, Volko, a bit surprised to see them play that as slowly as they did. Almost would have anticipated them to just immediately jump into those boxes from the get-go, but once Nemo's shields have been fully cracked, that seemed to be their green light to feel comfortable with actually going for this full key opportunity. But this is a team that has ample firepower behind it, and they're not the only ones. Putrix's trio, yet another one of our teams that all throughout the course of today's matches, Mini, they have just found themselves again and again and again in somebody else's crosshairs. And that certainly put a big halt onto their mid to late game strategy.
Yeah, and it just hasn't really been the best day for these guys either. Very low down on the leaderboards. That's why they're trying to go for these higher eliminations and try to be a little bit more fraggy here in the early stages of the game. Which is what we've seen them try and do. We have seen them try to fight. We've seen them try their best. Most notably probably against Han's trio, Rezoy and Ankido. We've seen them in lots of engagements against those guys. It just hasn't seemed to have gone their way, but now if they can get the momentum on their side, which these eliminations will do, and will hopefully bring them, they should hopefully be able to find a little bit more success. But deep into Storm here, they need to make their way in. But all you need is just that couple of eliminations, couple of opportunities to pick up some refreshes, and your game is just set.
Yeah, you just don't want to get stuck constantly going for the scraps of the lobby, right? And I think that that's something where not necessarily having as much of these set lobby experiences could definitely start to become a reoccurring threat here for some of these teams, where they're trying to find areas that they can actually establish their surge from. But when you're having to consistently switch it up between each and every match, that tells you a lot about just how difficult it can really be to have a solidified surge strategy online throughout the course of a 5-game series. But Jonah and Alan, they're still caught in the mix of it all. They want to try and play, and we haven't really seen a whole lot of island gameplay. I think a lot of teams just not really preferring to get caught up inside of the gliding. There's not as much safety provided here, Mini.
Yeah, much different to how the island has worked previously, where you have the zip line sort of surrounding it. This time, if you are the first team on the island, you do just have that great advantage over everyone else. All that sort of updraft sort of feature of the island means that everyone around you is just going to be flying around. So that's why we see the other team there just deciding to disengage. It was Neo there who went down, and to his teammates now. Actually, it looks as though they might actually be able to pick him up here. Oh, goodness me. Has he crawled off of the island? Wow. Or was it a reboot? It was the reboot. It was the reboot. I was confused for a sec, but yeah, they rebooted and he managed to get picked up via a revive. But that's good. That's fine. It doesn't matter if they get knocked out of the air while rebooting. They're still inside of the box and back as a trio, which is important. But yeah, it's one team on the island at a time, it seems like, at the moment.
Vicious cycle, though, getting rebooted and then immediately knocked yet again. Still going to burn through some very scarce resources, so might be a tough situation for News team to kind of work their way out of. And not really surprised to see teams kind of collecting inside the Storm, hanging around Seaport City. A little bit of build up here, though, and teams knowing that they can just play for the vending machine. Shaco's definitely taking advantage of it, but what Shaco's doesn't have is a whole lot of material, Mini. And at this stage, it can be really difficult to refarm those mats while being on the move.
Yeah, so difficult. I mean, it's not been the ideal day for these guys whatsoever, landing at Seaport all day. They haven't been able to find their feet inside of these games, lacking eliminations, lacking that consistency towards the sort of mid stages of the game. You can only imagine it's sort of Storm Surge problems at that stage of the game. But they need to make some magic happen here in this penultimate game. Of course, we have one more after this. So there is still time, and it could be important for these teams that are a little bit lower down to get some placement, to give themselves an option in game number 5 to not just have to go all out for the win, and maybe, just maybe, have a good, consistent game to put them into that top 5 consistency.
Karn's at least got enough medkits for his team to be able to tank up a little bit of the Storm as they kind of maneuver their way through game 4 here. Venya, Marius, and Pixie, though, Mini. This is easily a team that not a lot of people would have predicted would still be in fighting for their spot. Granted, they've had a pretty strong day. They're in, that consistency qualling threshold, but most people would have expected the win by now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they've been very consistent, as you mentioned. We saw the quick stat right there. They're one of only 2 teams to a place in top 10 in every single game so far. But yeah, it's not disappointing because we know that this team have been performing well. We know what they can do when it comes to the major finals, but it's definitely a little bit of a surprise, I think, for a lot of people would have expected that team to get a win. There's still time, of course. And for Floki, Snazy, and Ice, these guys also need to have that time. They're a team that sort of in the middle of the leaderboard going into this game. Not so great, but not terrible at the same time. It's not a disasterful situation for them, so they can kind of choose how they want to play this. As for Polish and his trio, it's not quite as good. This is a team that's all the way down at the bottom stage of the leaderboard. You can sort of see why the Storm Surge has been a bit of a problem. They're trying to aggress this team's box, as Floki's team are really trying their best to just back off, put it in reverse, get as much put as much builds in between you and the opponents as possible. And that's what they're trying to do right now, but it's unrelenting pressure from Polish's trio. And you can see Snazy, Floki, and Ice, they don't need this fight. They're 1,000 above.
Yeah, and they can tell that this other team is desperate for a reason, but Polish finally going to get punished for some of that over-aggression. But that's just a matter of desperation coming into play here. Rob Seal going to be next to fall here. Only Madsen left standing with 117 below. Last couple of small shield potions being expended here. Snazy, Floki, and Ice. This is the easiest Siphon material refarm you could possibly hope for. They played their cards right. They knew they weren't necessarily pressured, but now some real pressure might have just come into the mix there. Saw a glimpse of Potus ISW's and Art Skill. That's a team that might also be rearing for a fight here, but Panda, Bene, they've got to get inside zone. They've got damage, but they don't have much else.
No, and they don't have their teammate either, so this is a duo performance that's going to be required right here. I think this is one of those teams that we haven't really seen too much of today, although they have what it takes to perform well. A team that we can definitely expect to see in that last game, I'm sure. Now that they're down to a duo, Trix, Carmino and Sloxay, these guys are below, so they're really having to put the alarm bells on and say, right, we need to get inside of a box. That's why they're playing those splashes, they're playing the chug jugs, they're trying to heal up as much as possible ahead of getting into these boxes, trying to get that damage as quickly as possible and as effectively as possible, hopefully without losing any of their players as well, as Sloxay is able to get a couple of little tags. Altmo goes down there as well, so Carmino, Trix were able to find some tags there and pick up a crucial elimination, which does put them above the Storm Surge threshold, and they still need this loot, they still need to take this fight, as they still need that refresh.
Yeah, and it's not like Vasquez and his team are in a much better position, but Vasquez might have just turned the cards here, managing to find a full elimination onto Sloxay. That's at least going to buy him a little bit of Siphon time, but the Storm is relenting. The damage, the ticks, they are just eating away at his HP bar, even with that last Medmis grenade. Vasquez, he can only hope for a little bit of placement points, but what he needed was the win. This is not a winning position for him either. Marius, Pixie, and Vanya. On the other end of that note, though, they are taking over as far as control of the mountain range is concerned.
Yeah, really nicely done from those guys so far. It just seems like whenever they make it to that end stages of the game, they just lose one player. They have a problem that always seems to go wrong for them. They haven't been able to be in control of the entire lobby. They always seem to be scrambling in those sort of mid to low ground layers. So hopefully for them, this game's going to provide them with a little bit more flexibility, freedom to maybe take height, as we know these guys can do, as they continue to just apply pressure to all those players that are trying to make their way in. They're really holding down that sort of north side of the zone. They don't want anyone to be next to them, because of course if that team do need Storm Surge, they're going to be trouble, and you can just see the unrelenting pressure from this trio coming through. Rezoy was on the receiving end of that, I believe it was, all the way down on HP. Putrix is there as well. Kolb all in that sort of mess. It's a bit of a problem for all of those players, because there's so many players now looking at them. One of our top teams, Eyedrop Sky and Scroll, below on Storm Surge damage. This is something we haven't seen from these guys too often, or indeed at all, since they've been playing together. They're usually very good at getting damage early on, but they haven't been able to find it this game, Taco, and they're paying the price right now.
Just trying to get whatever damage they can. Vasquez, unfortunately, was a little bit of a easier pickup from the Surge tick damage. Just not really an opportunity there for Eyedrop, but they'll have another opportunity. They're a little bit tough spot as far as being over the water next to Demon's Dojo, but Frenek, Giras, Dinas, they're just trying to see if they can even pave their way up this little bit of an elevation span. Saw one team already starting to commit to a little bit of the high ground. And Scroll, it's definitely come at a cost. iDrop and Sky no longer with them, barely above the damage threshold. Very likely that he's going to choose to try and tank up what he can from the storm itself, but the Water Sprite's only going to buy him a little bit of time. And the moment that he peeps his head over the horizon, someone is bound to take notice. He's not even going to get a chance to get into this next edge of zone. Just too little too late.
I think they paid the price for a lot of players actually moving towards that Crime City area, fighting there. They were using them for Storm Surge earlier on in the games, and they just lost their Storm Surge farm towards the west, but who haven't lost any of their ability right now? It's Marius, Pixie, and Vanya who are continuing to apply pressure, trying to go for those pre-edits as well. You can see what their focus is here. It's damage. It's now. It's trying to give themselves that ability to play how they want in this endgame. As we do have a hype team cementing themselves up there so far with lots of metal builds. It's Serene, Voitus, and that team. So I'm interested to see if they can hold on to this. We've seen a lot of these high ground teams today struggling to find the refreshes, struggling to find eliminations, and ultimately running out of steam. Can they be different?
Problem is this material count doesn't look like a team that's going to be able to hold on to it throughout the course of these moving zones here, Mini, and sure enough, they've already been cut off. Marius, Pixie, Vanya have beat them to the punch as far as controlling the front side is concerned. The moment that they drop, they're going to have to deal with Marius' trio, so they're trying to get whatever damage they can, trying to make them burn whatever materials they can, but Marius, just another simple refresh from his teammates coming into play. They've got such a firm grasp on this secondary height. They're keeping tabs on the team above, but they know it's likely only a matter of time before they come tumbling down. Surely they can't hold on to this forever, so they're trying to make them burn, again, as much material as possible, but Marius just refuses to budge. He's not giving up this secondary height anytime soon. All the while, teams in the low ground just completely destroying each other, but they're getting picked apart from the mid ground.
Yeah, the zone pulls tumbling down the hill now. So for the team on high, they're going to have to drop a lot of layers. You can see how little materials they had right now. You can see that Vanya, Marius, and Pixie went all the way down to the front side, look back, spray up, and then hopefully take high. I think that's going to be something they're going to try and look to do, but no, they do try and go on down, and that's going to be successful for Serene, who does pick up so much damage on them as they do. Cringe, Kiddo, Volko, a team that we haven't seen too much in this stage of the game so far, but a team that has got what it takes. They're playing the low ground, 6 eliminations for them so far as well, but they do need the refreshes as they're plowing on through these low ground layers, trying to claim as much space as possible. But look at their build, Sacco. They need a refresh now more than ever.
And Volko trying to see if he can make something happen. Ivan, Aryan, though, they're just holding Kiruo. They're going to force him to layer swap even. He's going one up. Volko now trying to get back towards that ultimate low, but he's split. Kiruo has hardly any HP to his name. It's all down practically to Volko as far as extending this team's hopes towards those final moments are concerned, but without any builds, Mini, he needs a shot. He needs it now. Gavix recognizing the fact this guy's got nothing left to work with. Ivan going to start cranking upwards, using this elevation to his advantage, but Kentix might be able to cut him off in the process. It's going to be Kentix's team, actually, that are first to overtake the high ground. Marius' trio now in a whole world of trouble here because can they even make it up the mountain face?
Yeah, the zone pulls all the way back up. Kentic, Chucks, and Firehunter are the team that are in the prime position to take home game number 4 right now. They've been so dominant off spawn all day, and yet again, they are proving why they are dominant in the end game as well. A victory royale in game number 4 sends Kentic, Firehunter, and Chucks straight to the Major 2 finals.
And talk about finding the victory royale just in the nick of time because they had no other options here. It felt like Mini. This was not a team that was leading as far as the consistency metrics were concerned. A win and you're in is the dream scenario. So the fact that they were able to collect it just from some solid last-minute positioning, it showcases you can never give up hope entirely. You never know when some of these mountainous terrain zones are going to be able to pan out in your favor. So well played to Firebro's team. An excellent victory royale to punch their way to the Major 2 finals. But Frankie, Levin, Takata, what do you guys got to say?
Thank you very much, Taka. I was looking at the standings just when we went into game 4 and I was going, hang on a second, where's Fibro? Why is he outside of the top 10 with his trio? And then there they go, maybe I'm the lucky charm, but probably not because this is a trio that weathered such a difficult storm. I mean, the circles have been pretty cruel, to be honest, for Group 1, but this would seem like the cruelest of all, Evan.
Yeah, it doesn't get much cooler than that. I mean, it just kept pulling further and further and further. It's like, come on, give us a break, give us a pullback or two. I mean, you know, they handled it, you know, they made the best of a bad situation there. And another example of, you know, like a sort of like an old school CIS player there in Fire, bro, who sort of sneaks his way in. So good to see these guys make it in. And like Minnie very much mentioned, it's like at the end there, it's like they're just a team in the perfect spot to just farm out that situation.
Yeah, I mean, they capitalized on the moment when they needed to most. They were 16th going into this last match. Throughout the day, they never made top 10, not once, until they played this match. And once they were finally in those last moments of the end game, they capitalized on the situation and got that victory royale. I mean, I don't even know if they were going to qualify through consistency before they ended up getting that. So this is huge for them.
This is definitely a trio that needed to step it up. But as you mentioned, Takata, they probably would not have qualified, at least through the Group 1 stage, if they hadn't managed to weather that storm right at the end there. It'd be lovely to see the standings again if we can. There's a trio that I'd like to talk about because we've got to go to it. Oh, I'm so sorry. You know what, guys? I was getting so into it. It's because it's like back to school day. I forgot. We've got to take a break. We've got to put a pause on this conversation. When we come back, finally, we get to talk about where on earth Cringe, Kaduo and Volko have been. So we'll see you in a few. Congratulations to Kendick, Firebro, and Chucks. We will be seeing them in in a few weeks' time for the Major 2 Grand Finals. Yes, I know, Levin, I'm getting ahead of myself. I am giddy because I can't wait to talk about the chaos of Game 4 tonight. We were saying about how that zone was particularly difficult. I feel like, though, Levin, a lot of the trios today haven't caught a break with the zones. The mountains have been so deadly, it feels like almost every single game.
Yeah, but it's like one of those things where it's like, it's Fortnite, innit? You know what I mean? It's like, all the
How it
zones
is,
are tough today. Like, I always find it funny when players, like, I'm complaining about that. Because I get it. Like, when you play and you're actually in the game and you feel like the game's against you, but it's like, that's just the luck of the draw. And as a fan, just watching, it's more entertaining that way. So I'm never complaining.
Well, let's take a look at the standings if we can, because it'd be interesting to see where we're at. Now, make a note of the fact, guys at home, that 1 to 4, those are duos, trios even, that have already qualified for the grand final. So we'll be seeing them in a few weeks' time. But if you look downwards, Vanya, Pixie and Maris, they've been consistent all night. They've been pulling off limbs exactly when they need to. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed that they might be able to pull off the victory royale, though, still, Takata.
Yeah, I mean, they've done a great job. They've made top 10 every single game throughout the day. They're doing a good job of getting those eliminations, but they just haven't converted any of them to the victory royale yet. But I mean, if you want to end it off in style, then doing it in the last match is the way to go, Levin.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't see, I think there's a bit of bias here from Frankie, to be honest with you guys. Because, you know, Frankie was doing this whole, oh yeah, Podeside's just trying to do the content for M8, give them some more content. You know, Marius and Vanya are doing the same thing. They just want to play all the games out. I didn't hear that from you, Frankie.
Yeah, where's that bias?
Like, Maris has also got a very excitable chat. And again, I just really enjoying seeing Maris brag out. And you know what? You can be biased towards anyone now because everyone has to play in game number 5. And then we'll find out which 10 trios have secured their spot in the finals. There's a trio that I am kind of tracking keenly, though, through these games at the moment because we spoke about them in the pre-show. Cringe is a trio. They are doing so well in their early games in terms of picking up loot. They get in the train. Sometimes they're going to the black market as well. And yet it's been so rare seeing them convert this to an endgame situation, Takata, until this last game.
Yeah, I honestly thought they were performing better until I saw where they were on the leaderboard, right? Going into this last match, they were in 12th. They were quite significantly, well, out of that qualifying range, right? But they've been doing such a good job getting eliminations in the early and the mid game, but converting those refreshes in those final moments where you need it most to kind of push yourself through that top 10 into more of a top 3, top 4. Even winning the match is what they've had difficulty doing, Levin.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Again, this is a team that is like relatively newly formed, right? You know, they've not had much experience playing with each other. So I guess figuring things out, especially in a lobby like this. But they're thereabouts. You know, with that last game, it really puts them in a stronger position.
Well, at least they're only just sitting outside the top 10. If they are able to convert that early game to success and make it to the final zone, we should be seeing them make it through. There's another trio, though, that are higher up on the rankings, though. Takata, we were having a little chat, and you made a really interesting comparison, even actually in the last post game. Podeside's trio, they're a trio that almost have the opposite approach to the likes of Kadua's trio, and they are making it to the end games.
Right, they're kind of minimizing that risk earlier on in the match and consistently getting to endgame. It kind of reminds me of Tayson's trio before he had the fragging power of Chicho and Haris. They're getting to the endgame, but they're just not getting enough eliminations to set them up for that victory royale. They're not playing, like, making those game-winning plays, but I mean, you can still qualify through consistency, so it's fine. Most likely they'll make it. They've done an amazing job, but I'd like to see them get a victory royale.
Levin, are there any other trios that you're hoping to see a victory royale from potentially in game number 5?
I mean, it quite literally could be anyone's game with game 5 coming up. I would say I still want to see Vanya and them do it, right? Close out the last game in style. I think they've had so many high moments throughout this day that, you know, it'd be a great way to sort of end it off. Some good momentum, especially considering like the teams in Group 1 that qualify always are just sitting out for longer, you know? So ending on a high would be great for them, I think.
Can we take a look at the leaderboard? There's a trio that we haven't spoken about yet. I'm curious to see where they are. And the reason why I want to see them, and it's Voitus, Skriv and Seren, because they're the only trio that we've seen today go for Island. And I find that really interesting because, of course, when you think about some of the big trios in Europe, so, for example, King Queasy, that was a huge trap for them in Major number 1. I know we've lost the only mask now, so we're not going to see as many people go for Island, but is it still something that can make or break a game, Takata?
Yeah, I mean, it's great for conserving materials. It's great for positioning. There are 3 island spawns, right, that happen throughout the match. So depending on where the zone pulls, you can kind of base your rotate sometimes on that if you want to not only get the loot for island, but conserve your match through the rotate. But like you mentioned, Frankie, without the Oni mask, you can't just TP down from the island. You have to kind of fly on in, and it opens up more opportunities to get beamed out of the sky. It's a bit more risky. It's still possible, but you definitely have to be an elite IGL if you want to successfully kind of consistently have those island plays come through.
Very quickly from Levin, do you think it's worth it going for the island?
I mean, if it's convenient, right? I don't think it's a universal yes. I don't think there's many things that are universal yes for teams in Fortnite, right? I think if it makes sense for how the game's playing out, then sure.
All right, well, sound more hype, Levin, because we're going to game number 5 of Group 1. Let's find out who is going to be taking the final victory royale of the night and who is going to be making it to the grand finals.
Thanks so much, guys. And Minnie, today has been full of pleasant surprises. As far as Group 1 is concerned, I think a lot of people would have anticipated some different names to kind of have already staked their way through victory royales. But as far as that consistency metric is concerned, some last-minute opportunities, and those teams outside of that 6th through 10th position, they're kind of hoping that a team closer to the top of the leaderboard is actually going to be the one to find a victory royale in this last lobby.
Yeah, definitely. I think my biggest surprise from today is that a lot of the top teams haven't necessarily been winning. I think Taysom was the only one that has, but we're going to find out who's going to win in game at number 5.
A lot on the line here for those teams that are just outside of the cutoff threshold here, though. And with only one lobby remaining, one lobby to be the difference, essentially, between having to participate in that last chance qualifier versus knowing you've got your trio seat set up, ready to go for the Major 2 finals. And things are already looking a little bit different as far as Lone Wolf Lair is concerned. Monet probably extraordinarily happy about the fact that they are now uncontested.
Oh, goodness me. They would have been cheering on Kensick, Firehunter, and Chucks in that end game, you have to imagine, because they do not want to be contested by them here in this final game. What it does mean is if they are contesting them, if they do make it through to the Major 2 finals, they might be contesting them there, but we'll have to wait and see. They need a big, big game here to make that happen, so not going to be easy whatsoever, but they're finally uncontested, which I'm sure they'll be very happy about. Maybe we'll see them later on in the game. And for Neo, Jonah, and Alan here, these guys are locking down Kappa Kappa Factory. We saw that in the previous game. Doing incredibly well. And look who's back. Neuer and his team back at Mars Meadows. Cade, Ian, and Ivan have a different sort of problem to deal with again. It looks as though Neuer, though, has been... Well, Neuer's team has been shut down. Neuer's back as a solo. Ian and Cade down. Ivan having to try and clutch up with the revive here. He might have to do a little bit more than just that as well. He might have to hit a shot, but no. Manages to get Cade up, which is great news for that team. It's now a 2v1 situation. Misha is still down. Could be revived. But you can see Neuer just trying to close in on the duo here. Nearly connects with a shot through the window. This is a difficult decision for him to make right now. Game number 5, all the pressure's on. This is such an important off-spawn battle. Because looking at the standings as well, it's so close. So both teams need this.
You've got to be holding your breath for your fellow Welsh comrade, I'm sure, Minnie. But Cade, Ivan, they might be able to settle the difference here. Kiruo, Cringe, and Volko wasting absolutely no time. Just northwest of Foxy Floodgate, they're going to find their first pair of eliminations. So they know they've got to be quick on their feet as far as chasing out Burke is concerned, but they might not fully pursue this. It might be better left to just reaggress after the fact. They want to make sure that they're able to farm the necessary materials that they're after. Get a little bit of a closer insight for what went wrong here, though, Kiruo's team, because securing the train not going to be in the cards since they were delayed by Clapsy with that surprise contest, it seems like.
Yeah, that's what's happened there, but looks as though they have been able to find a couple of those eliminations. Of course, leaves the train now open for another team, Robcio and Polish's team. This is an important moment for them as well, being able to actually get all of this loot, because of course they are second last on the standings right now, so maybe this is just the catalyst that they need to qualify through. And there's quick stat, 200 points. Was enough to qualify in every EU and NA Central group last season, so That's the number that these teams might be looking to try and achieve. For teams like this, though, they don't care about 200 points. They care about victory royales. That's what's going to matter for them in this final game. It's the only choice they have left at this current point. It hasn't been the day to remember for them.
A win's essentially going to be their only way through, unless they want to hope that they can actually have success through that last chance qualifier, but doubt any of our teams are after that. Podesai Eswee's art skill, a little bit of a hiccup here early on. Doesn't seem like it's going to deter them too heavily, though. This art skill beaming a player from afar. Some great shots being applied here. Kind of just hovering this Flooded Frogs vicinity. They know that there's going to be a decent amount of foot traffic through here. As Sloxay also continuing to chase out other players. This team might just have enough, though. They're going to manage to find Aryan, and the real issue now posed is whether or not they can actually get out of Masked Meadows. There are so many other teams kind of just surrounding the territory. Teams all looking to try and take advantage of the vault and black markets nearby.
Disaster for Cade, Iron, and Ivan, who are very, very close to getting inside of that consistency qualification. This moment right now for Cade is so, so crucial. It can shape their entire season. And that's the stakes that are on the line right now. There's absolutely no guarantees that they'll even make the LCQ finals. So these are the moments. This is your chance. You have to treat this like your only chance to qualify through to the Major 2 finals. Ivan does fall as well. So Trix, Sloxay, and Carmino, who also do need this as well. They need to go on a bit of a tear here at the beginning of the game. They need those eliminations. They need to keep themselves going through the game. But I think for now, Cade might just be alive still at this current moment. So he's the last one standing in that team. Yeah, you can just see him in the distance right there. So he's having to put the team on his back right now and find a reboot potentially.
Just so much ground to cover, though. And with two teams closing in on your position, it's not going to be easy to escape as a solo. Monet, Sadie, Wise, they know that they've got their own troubles brewing here by Magic Mosses. And it seems like so many teams are kind of just like, whatever, man, let's just throw everything into playing into the areas that we know are going to have the best resources available. Because regardless of the outcome, it is their best option, considering that they don't have any other lobbies left to work with. It's just the last chance qualifier if you're not able to secure your position in this Game 5. And Monet knows it, but there's just too much commotion outside of their current boxed up position for them to want to fight just yet. They're hoping that they can maybe catch wind of somebody's shields getting cracked from elsewhere. That might be their sign to go ahead and jump in to a box fight, but they're willing to just take their time, play it slowly. They're not looking for any sort of unnecessary risk.
So much patience being displayed from all of these teams in this area. You have teams that are lurking nearby, waiting for the moment to pounce. You have players inside of the box fights. They don't want to get too aggressive right now. As Sloxay, Carmino, they're looking to get aggressive as they sneak up onto Misha. Gets a huge amount of damage onto him, but it's not going to be enough to take him out. As now the full trio do try and get inside of the box. Hits a great shot to Sloxay, but it's a 2 versus 1 in that particular box. Not gone Sloxay's way, and this sneaky play might just end up hurting this team. And this is a team, of course, that do need this game to be a good one. Outside of that consistency, haven't got a victory royale, of course, yet. So it's gone from bad to possibly even worse for this team, as that sneak play just didn't work out in their favor whatsoever. Carmino and Trix are the ones that need to try and clutch up right now. Can he connect with some shots? Not gonna happen. Misses the shot. And Noya, Yasin, and Misha are able to just turn the tides on that fight entirely. Well done to that trio.
Yeah, Misha is the last person to get a taste of his own medicine, right? I can respect the attempt, but Trix's trio had exactly one shot opportunity apiece. The moment that they weren't able to find that knock and confirm the elimination onto Misha, that was the open invitation for things to completely turn against them. Zaya, Bimbo, and Darky, though, hoping for a different outcome. Masked Meadows just continues to be as poppin' as ever, but they can recognize the fact that there are pulse scanners in play. They're not willing to encroach upon the position just yet. They don't want to be openly revealed. They know even if they just choose to play scavenger, they could definitely still aim to be aggressive with the teams that are kind of just rotating around the outskirts of Mass Meadows. And Darky won't have any other options. They just don't have the opening they're hoping for. And Cade, we are just watching the demise of the Welsh I Fear Mini.
Yeah, not an ideal situation for Cade right now. I mean, it was not great off spawn, the way that they weren't able to convert that fight into a win for them. Then, of course, all the other teams that come on through, and the entire lobby right now, they're just like vultures. Any team that's trying to fight, there's going to be teams that are not willing to jump in box, but are willing to third party, that'll be looking for moments to strike. And unfortunately for Cade, he's going to have to count his last few seconds here in group number 1, because you've got a full trio, Neuer, Yasin, and Misha, who are putting the final nail in the coffin for Cade, unfortunately, which has been a really interesting off-spawn fight to watch all day. We've seen both teams having their go at it, having success in varying degrees. Even this team on screen that have been able to sort of switch drop, find a little bit more success, and then return. But unfortunately for Cade's trio, it does go the way of Misha in this final game, which is important for them because they need a good game here in order to qualify through here into the Major 2 finals.
Cade knew it was wraps. There was just nowhere left to run. It was so obvious to Misha's trio that there's a reason this team is shooting from a distance and the shots are not being returned. So they knew that that was just all too favorable of a spot for them to take advantage of. But Kiruo, Cringe, Volko, we saw the leaderboard heading into this final match, Mini. They need this game, and it's crazy to think about because their play-ins, day 1, they were practically qualified for this group stage, right? Just off of 1 day of play-ins. It still did decently on the second day as well, but it's more so the fact that we've seen them not have that same level of success here in this group.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the level of the lobby, the upgrade over the play-ins, and especially since this is a trio that got together for the play-ins. Cringe and Volko play with Cade for a lot of this season. It can really test you when you're a team that maybe hasn't got as much experience together. You haven't got that experience to rely on when you do have troublesome moments. So that could be a reason for that. But they're in a good position, and as is Giras, Dinas, and Franek. This is a team that have been performing very well today, very consistent throughout all of their games, of course. They've only had 1 game outside of that top 10. And I like this trio. This is an interesting one. I know that last season, Dinas and Franek actually played together, not with Giras, but Giras didn't make the Major 1 final, so he was sat in core with him and the entire team. So he thought, you know what, I've coached him. Let's just pick him up. These guys are absolutely goated, and now he's here playing with them. He'll want to take them to his first Major finals of the year. So it's nice to see that players do have that ability to just sort of go from coach to player and leading that team to success. I Drop Sky and Scroll by no means already qualify, which is quite a surprising statement to say at this point, Taco. I would have expected them to already be through, let alone not getting a victory royale, but also not actually confirmed in terms of consistency.
Yeah, they're definitely a little bit further up in comparison to some other teams in the lobby, but they can't get comfortable by any means. You don't want to find yourself autopiloting, but I hope that doesn't deter them from going for some early skirmishes, because we know how much firepower they actually have. I mean, even just stemming back to the Game 1 performance, after what we witnessed, to think that they're still competing and weren't able to secure a victory royale earlier on in the day. It's definitely surprising, to say the least. And Vanya, Pixie Mario is joining them on that same note. Another team that you just would have expected to have made it through by now. Granted, they are basically guaranteed because of where they sit as far as consistency is concerned. Polish, though, wrong neighborhood. He at least made it onto the launch pad, but unfortunately, Zinx just choosing to continue trying to close in. Madsen not going to have the same level of success. Samp's patience paying off dividends currently. That first elimination is going to be a huge thorn in the side here. Robsio and Polish now having to reconsider how they actually want to play this one forward.
Crucial moments. I mean, when you're in Game 5 right here, we spoke about that team. They need a massive game, second last on the leaderboard. Every single move you make, every single edit, every single build place just has that increased level of meaning, that increased pressure And unfortunately for Polish's team, it looks as though the pressure's going to no longer be a thing, but not for a good reason, as I think they're going to be out of the lobby, back to reassess. Zinx, Brownie, Sampy, all of these guys continuing their pressure, their aggression. And Polish is the last player standing. His health is dwindling through the storm. There's only a matter of time right now before Sampy can take him out. That's their 4th elimination of the game. I'm excited to see what this trio can do here in this game now, bolstered by those eliminations.
It's a huge learning lesson, though. No launch pad is considered a safe rotation, no matter how deep inside the storm you might feel yourself to be. As Eltenzi, then Napuzo, they're going to be the ones looking to try and take advantage of the island spawn currently, but keep in mind, Mini, when you're talking about teams that are just outside the realm of reaching the consistency measure for the leaderboard, Dendipuza's team kind of skirting the line here. They do need a really strong pop-off performance here.
Yeah, they do, and they're doing everything they can to get that with that island. For Neuer, Yasin, and Misha, this is a team that we saw doing very well off spawn. Hopefully they'll be able to continue that, and this replay shows that they are. So nicely done there to clutch up, get his team back alive, get his team back standing. And it's moments like that that you can really look back on sometimes when you at the end of the season and say, yeah, that was the moment that really was the catapult for our entire season, particularly now that Cade, of course, is not going to be featuring in the Major 2 finals as of right now. They'll have to qualify through that last chance qualifier. Maybe they'll be a little bit more confident about potentially landing at Mars Meadows. Of course, there's other teams that might be landing there, but just that confidence is going to be so much more important. XW's,
Potosa, and Artskill, they're also a team that's definitely got a solid amount of confidence that they're working with, and sitting at 204 points currently, you have to anticipate that they are pretty much set, but you still want to close things out in a clean fashion. Even if you know that you're basically guaranteed off of the consistency measure, why not make it flashy to close? Why not showcase? And one big thing, Minnie, that we were asking for from this team was to actually develop consistency in comparison to some of the woes that, you know, trailed them in that first major. They're definitely looking to try and shift that conversation for Major 2.
For sure, and it's not a really good start for them in terms of how this major is kicking off. Kiduo, Volko, Cringe. Likewise, they've been pretty solid today. Haven't been absolutely incredible, but each player has the ability, has the talent to make it to the finals. And I think this is a team that we would expect to see in the major finals, especially with how much experience both all 3 players have playing together, and of course now as a full trio.
Bit of a rough spot there though for Cringe's team, and after a certain point, even some of our more experienced players, you can expect a little bit of nerves to sort of factor in, because we did see, while Cringe and Volko and them have had a relatively decent day, they haven't had a strong enough day to 100% confirm themselves. That's what they're looking to do in this final Game 5 here. And time could potentially be running out, or it could be working out in their favor, but they've got to keep steady tabs on the French trio that was above them. Good overview, though, of what's actually taking place on that mountain span, as surge damage does seem to be a huge threat here currently.
Sneaky beaky here for Kiduo, Volko, Cringe. They're trying to make sure they're not heard going deep into the storm right here. Interesting play. They're just trying to take advantage of that dead side. Of course, they spotted a couple of medkits over there, so Volko's going to try and make those his. You can just see they're making this incredible storm tank, and yeah, it's going to be the med mist that he ends up grabbing. Incredible storm tank to rotate actually around the hill, back up from the other side, claiming that position, not only in a really nice sort of uncongested position, but also taking Brownie and company by surprise potentially in the back. So they've got to be extra careful as to who's coming up behind him there.
Risk first reward could definitely be the game changer there, that's for sure. Marius, Vanya, and Pixie, though, they're just going to play steady and true. It's something that we've definitely witnessed pretty strongly from this trio throughout the course of the day. Although they haven't been able to get the Victory Royale, Game 5 is still an opportunity to do so, and it would definitely help some of those teams just outside on that top 10 area of the leaderboard. But Vanya, Marius, Pixie, they've caught wind of Ricky's trio just completely spraying down those builds. They know the lobby focus is in that direction, so why not join the fray?
Much more peaceful environment here for iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, who haven't really had a peaceful day whatsoever. Gonna be able to make
Great
a nice
zone
big
pull.
base here, though. Really nice zone pulls. They can spend a little bit more materials, but it's definitely been a bit of a topsy-turvy day in terms of this trio. I feel like they haven't really been a trio for a lot of it. Of course, we remember that amazing clutch in game number 1 from Scroll and Sky. Where would they be if they didn't have that amazing clutch? So I think it's definitely been a bit of a rocky road for them so far today. They can make it all good if they qualify through here at the end. It'll all be forgotten, I'm sure, but hopefully something that they can learn from as they progress through this season. Marius, Vanyak, and Pixie, though, trying to make their way up this hill. It's actually pulled back towards the south, so it'll be a little bit difficult for all those teams that did make that dead side rotate. I think it's going to be no problem for these guys. They don't have triple kneecapper, which is a little bit of a disadvantage, you have to say, but as long as they can find their way through this path, they should be okay, Taco.
They might even be able to just collapse on a team on their trek up the mountainside.
Yeah.
You can imagine that not every single one of these trios is going to be in prime positioning or prime loadouts, but they might have a kneecapper or two. If Pixie and them can find the eliminations. Lucy and Gabix, though, at the very bottom, just working their way through on the backside of the zone, and they might have to tank a couple of Storm Ticks in the process, but it's definitely a worthwhile sacrifice if it means just a little bit more placement. Considering their current position, Mini, they do look relatively set, but they want to play it as safe as possible, especially because they know that they're a duo. Unfortunately for them, Darky, Bimbo, seems like they've taken notice, as now Belusi going to be forced to come to a halt, but the material is running incredibly thin. They've got to make sure that their next couple of shots are as accurate as ever. They cannot afford to miss when dealing with a full trio.
Yeah, Storm Surge looking a bit of a problem, of course, there. It's not ideal, and of course, we saw the stat earlier. 200 points should do it if we base it on history. Historical data shows that 200 points is enough. And it was enough on both EU and NA. So that's the sort of prime target for a lot of these players. For Weddy, Kolb, and Putrix, this is a team that we've seen a lot of today, but not for the good reasons necessarily. Only on 45, or 48 points, I should say. A team that really need this game to go successfully for them. That's why they're really playing for height early on. Of course, it has its benefits, Taco, but when you play height this early, you do lose out on a lot of those materials, and you have to invest them. You're at mercy to whatever the zone decides to do. So it can work out in their favor, but with how this game's going to go, you just don't know, because so many teams also need that victory as well.
Got to be nailing more of those shots as well to try and control the flow of those teams that are looking to play through that secondary height position, especially a team like Vanya, Marius, and Pixie. Ooh. There's the connections that we're hoping for from Letty onto Ice, and that's definitely going to put a bit of a halt there. Snazy and Floki know that they're going to have to wait for Ice to actually get a little bit of recuperation on those shields. Way backside of the zone, though. Weddy, Kolb, Putrix, just trying to apply whatever damage they can. They want to make sure that they are staying well above the damage threshold should it come into play here. They also just want the additional points. Every little bit counts at this point.
Yeah, it does. They're not going to be able to get enough points to qualify through consistency, and oh my goodness. You cannot be open for more than a second, because it's beams like that when you're on height, which has opened the door for teams down below to then think, okay, one of them's beamed, let's go on up. So they've got to watch out for those angles. And I think the zone, yeah, really, really favorable zone for them. Pulls back and also back over the hill, which is going to be so difficult for those teams that did decide to rotate and play that sort of lower section of the map. These zones today, Taco, have been unrelenting, but for a team that's on height, you would expect them to ride out this high ground position, given that they're now in the prime position to take over this entire lobby.
It's really just Vanya, Marius, and Pixie, as well as even Sky, Scroll, and iDrop. You can't afford to let them out of your sights for even a moment. Kolb and Putrix, they've got other plans in mind, but Volko, Cringe, Kiduo, they're just going to continue slow and steady, working their way up, tarping their way through the tunnels, coming into effect here. But Scroll, Sky, iDrop, they recognize the fact teams scurrying overhead. Gida's going to manage to find an elimination, much needed as well. Running a little bit low in that materials refresh as well as that damage threshold. Gonna vote more in his favor, but Volko, that is a massive shot onto Vanya. A huge threat just eliminated in front of his eyes. He knows it's gonna be a weakened trio now. Marius and Pixie, if anybody can do it, it's certainly these two, but they are in a world of hurt still. A duo having to scale this mountain face and deal with all the teams dogpiling around them.
Such an important endgame here as well for Sky, Scroll, and iDrop. They're not quite safe and secure yet. They need to make this game count. We've seen them do it on multiple occasions. Giras now as a solo. I think he might just have it all locked up, but he's going to try and clutch up as much as he can. We spoke about it earlier, how this is a player that was picked up 2 amazing fraggers for this season. It's now him that's going to have to solo clutch to success here. Kiduo, Volko, Cringe, they're a team that does need this to be a very good game as well. We see 2 of our teams that need to make sure they make it into this end game as late as possible, at the very least, in order to qualify through to the Major 2 finals here. Huge stakes, Taco.
The high ground, it's getting messy as ever. Scroll managing to actually break his way back through the scaling, this down face of the mountainside. Giras still clinging on for dear life. He has ample build, so he can just choose to play off of his builds, stick towards that back of zone. Marius, Pixie, only 1 elimination still in tow. We know that they're relatively well off, but how firmly can they cement themselves in their position on that leaderboard? That's what we have to question at this point. They're still stuck inside of the secondary height layer. Scroll, iDrop, they seem like they want to go for the low ground takes. They've got full control of front side for the time being, and now they're going to opt to push back and spray. Putrix, absolute catastrophe here with the way the zone is pulled straight into the crevice of this valley.
And now look who it is. It's Misha, it's Noya, it's Yasin, a team that have had a bit of a difficult day overall. You have to say they're looking not so difficult right now, all the way up on high ground. Looking at their builds, it might just fizzle out a little bit earlier than they expect. And this is what we've seen from a lot of teams today. Can they find that refresh that's going to keep them going? They have the heal condition. They have that exotic chug jug as they're spraying on down below. They have to use every single one of those medium bullets to make sure that nobody can take this high ground off of them. Because this zone, this is in a very mountainous area. Things can change so quickly, Taco.
Misha's been a consistent finals contender as well. It would be a travesty to think that they could miss out, but Misha gonna be eliminated from the skies. Scroll, Sky, iDrop now stuck inside of all the calamity taking place inside of this mid-ground. Pixie trying to see if he can scurry around, but Pixie shut down. That's gonna be the first knock. Marius, though, he can't find the confirmation that he needs until he gets it. Cringe put down just in the nick of time, and sure enough, Cringe, that refresh, all these loot, all that goodies, but Marius, he's not gonna be able to make use of it. Sky collapsing from behind. It's the last thing he would have ever seen coming. But Noah, he's trying to keep the dream alive. 14 Misha, Yasin as well. It's only Sky underneath them. And sure enough, Sky's going to join the elimination count here. Noya, Misha, and Yasin with 12 eliminations. All they need is to find the final member here. Scroll keeping the dream alive, but he can't do it. And Scroll, sure enough, caught at the very bottom of this hill face. Many, you couldn't have asked for a better closing. The absolute Cinderella story here for Misha and Yasin. They needed this one so badly, and the fact that they're able to convert Game 5 into their victory royale, beautiful scenes.
Wow, I mean, I was almost shaking for them there at the end because the stakes were so high. Sky and Scroll and iDrop, they'd already qualified. Whether they won or not, it didn't matter. But for Noya, Misha, and Yasin, that was a crucial victory royale that will make sure that they are going to be featured in that Major 2 finals. They've had such a rocky day so far today, or in the day entirely. They've had so many difficult situations. They've gone down off spawn. They've had a solid game here and there, but overall, it had to be done via victory royale, and that is what they've done to secure themselves a spot in the Major 2 finals.
All I can think back to is that initial survival point for Misha when those shots weren't able to confirm the knock onto him earlier on over by Mask Meadows, and then the fact that they're able to transition from that sort of position, finding those early eliminations. It seems like they were able to convert it almost flawlessly. Those zones have been brutal throughout the course of today here, Mini, but it's been an absolutely fantastic Group 1 performance. That's going to do it for us, though. Games 1 through 5 all cleanly wrapped up. We'll get a chance, though, to review what actually took place as far as the leaderboard is concerned with our desk.
Thank you so much, guys, and congratulations on making yet another successful duo debut in the FNCS. There's something about that, Taco. I think she's the perfect partner. Mini Minor will see you next week as well. So let's talk about this wonder trio, Noya, Yasin, and Misha, because they had a great game 4. They showed the potential there, and then game 5 got off to a fantastic start. They wiped Cade's trio off the map, the Welshies. I'm so sorry, Mini Minor. And then they made good on that promise by taking the victory royale to Carter.
Yeah, I mean, they needed that victory royale. They were going against iDrop in those final moments, but iDrop, based on that placement, he was already qualified through consistency. But Noya, Misha, and Yasin, they were 21st going into this match. They literally needed that victory royale. There was only 2 games today that they didn't get eliminated in the early game, and they got 6th and a VR11.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you look at how things have played out for a team like this who spends most of the day fighting off spawn, that off-spawn battle got quite a bit personal, right? One of the beauties of this format is the fact that, like, when teams win and leave the lobby, it's like, okay, we can't just move POIs. These guys were consistently just fighting that mask, like they weren't giving it up. And I think based off of how that last game went, it's like the team you're fighting against probably won't be able to qualify now. It must feel good for them to get that win and sort of push those guys to the side.
Yeah, especially if they got Misha in the trio. You would have thought he'd be like, oh, let's just change drop spot. Like, he's no stranger to changing his drop spot from game to game, and yet they stuck it out, and in the end, it came good. So let's take a look at the 5 trios who have booked their spot in the Major 2 Grand Finals via Victory Royale. So if you can cast your mind back to a mere few hours ago, 11, Dexy, Hutty, and Artist, they made their Victory Royale look simple.
Yeah, no, I think, again, a team that a lot of people could see being in the finals of the major, right? You know, you look at Dexy, Hutty, Artist, plenty of experience in EU FNCS. All of them have played in finals before, and so no surprises to see them get it done.
Yeah, then we also have Stormy, right? I mean, a blast from the past. Last finals that he qualified to was Chapter 3, Season 3, I think. Literally over 3 chapters ago, but they got the job done. So excited to see some veterans.
Yeah, last time Stormy Rat was in a final, me and you were casting EU, right?
Yeah.
So definitely a bit of a flashback. It feels like it's been a long time since then. Game number 3, Hatris, Haris, Tayson, and Chicho got it done. I think when you're looking at the big favorites in the lobby, this was a team I think people would have expected to do it. Maybe not by the win though, which I guess maybe would be a bit of a surprise, right? Obviously last major, they didn't win a game when they were playing with Trulex instead of Haris. This major though, they're able to get the win. That extra bit of firepower was enough to get it done.
It feels like the big names in the lobby, obviously outside of your Tayson really, are trios that have put up really consistent performances today. So let's see who made it through to the majors from consistency points, the majors, I should say, the major finals. Vanya, Pixie, Marius, expected really to Carter.
Yeah, the top 2, 3 even was pretty expected. Well, not top 3 actually, because iDrop, Sky, and Scroll were on that borderline going into the last match, but with that second place, they qualified. Also, Cringe, Volko, and Kiduo, they were out of qualifying rage going into the last match and chose not to drop at the same spot they've been dropping throughout the whole day, and it still played off well. They got 3 eliminations off the start of the match and picked up even more refreshes later on, and truly just did enough to put themselves in the major finals. So I love to see it.
I'm looking at this consistency list and it's a stacker. It's an absolute stacker. I mean, you know, if you had told me that was the winners list at the start of the day, I would have been like, yeah, makes sense. That's a good prediction. Look, Kido, Volko, Cringe, they got it done towards the end. I think they were a team that, you know, was a bit up in the air because when you're a slightly newer team and you have this firepower and you're landing at the train, people are probably expecting a lot. And at times it was close, but it's good to see them sort of get it done there towards the end. I think this is a team I really am excited to see in the major finals. Kido, Volko, Cringe, all players with experience in that field, but altogether, I think there is something, you know, some potential there to build off of now.
What was really interesting, though, to jump in here, guys, was that they didn't go for the train strat this time. And yet it felt like it was their best game to Carter when they actually went away from something they've been practicing.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have as much of, you know, the top tier loot, but they had enough loot to make it happen. They still got the refreshes and they still played well. I'm curious to see what kind of spot they're going to be able to secure in the major finals as more and more trios qualify. But overall, I think they're set up to potentially kind of be some underdogs that can make something happen.
Looking at page 2 of the standings, guys, there are definitely some names who I am expecting to see in the last chance qualify. If you cast your eye to number 17, Floki, Snazy, and I, surely 11. That's going to be a trio to contend with when it comes to those last 3 spots.
Yeah, absolutely. A bit of a tough day for these guys. They were initially going to be contesting at Shiny, decided not to do that. They decided they wanted to, land at a spot, be uncon at the Mosses, and it didn't quite go their way. And so, not to, stir the pot a bit, but maybe French teams should just keep contesting people. I don't know. Everybody complains, but maybe they should just keep doing it, So I expect those guys to do good, though, in the last chance, and I hope we see them make it through.
So Levin's now farming for the French viewership to Carter. Is there anyone that you wanna try and get engagement from now? Any trios you want to mention?
I'm not gonna do any farming here, no glazing so far. We'll see in the next groups if maybe I'll do some more of that.
Okay, one more question then. Have we seen our Major 2 Blade of Champion winners today, Levin?
I am going to say we have not. I'm gonna say we have. I think.
I like rivalry, right? I like kind of making things a little interesting, but there's not one clear winner on EU. There's a few options, but I don't think that we've seen them today either.
You know what, Levin? I let you get off lightly there. I interrupted you. Give me your reasoning. Come on, be brutal. Come on.
My reasoning is part of the reason why I think every person watching this right now should keep watching. When you look at Group 2 and Group 3 next week, we got some amazing teams still to come, and that's why.
We've got so much more amazing plays to be happening, not just in Major 2, but don't forget May the 10th. It's our first big LAN of the year, the Gallon Center, Los Angeles. The Pro-Am is coming your way. Don't forget to get your tickets. We can't wait to see you in the City of Angels, and I can't wait to see what happens next week as well, and what happens in North America. So stick around, because in a few hours' time, Zeke and the gang will be there to talk you through the action. They'll even be on this channel, I should say. So for now, boys, I bid you adieu, and all I have to say is sound that horn.
Welcome to the FNCS Pro-Am.
Step to the throne, I'm a king, not a quitter, ayy.
Smile my way through life like it's easy. Most days I can't fake what I'm feeling. I've had success, but still pretty needy. I've got skill, don't need to be lucky. I like winning, fame, and the money. Try to take the lead, I swear I will own ya.
Real talk, money bags bigger. Head held high, I'm a champion with some shimmer, I'm a winner. Real talk, ain't no beginner. Step to the throne, I'm a king, not a quitter, I'm a winner. Real talk, money bags bigger. Head held high, I'm a champion with some shimmer, I'm a winner. Real talk, ain't no beginner. Step to the throne, I'm a king, not a quitter, ayy.
Step to the throne with my confidence.